daily take over at HartmannReport.com is titled "Silencing Dissent Without a Single Raid: The Billionaire Capture of America's News." And I did a deep dive. When I was writing this yesterday afternoon, I did a deep dive on the research on this thing, and it just boggled my mind. The business model that the Trump administration is working with right now is one that was really pioneered by Hitler back in the 1930s and is now in use in many different countries around the world. And it's very simple. It's very straightforward. You want to shut down the media. You don't want a media that opposes you. You don't want a media that highlights the opposition political parties. You want a media instead that gives you tongue baths, that shines your shoes, that talks about how wonderful you are, that constantly praises you. You want every media in the country to be like Fox News or One America News or, these right-wing billionaire-owned outlets. So what do? You get billionaires to own all the media, right-wing billionaires. But owning the media can be a pain in the ass. It can be expensive. It can be a money-losing proposition. So how do you do it? You say to them, hey, you go buy the media, and I'll make sure that whatever you're losing on your media property, I mean, Jeff Bezos is losing about $100 million a year on the Washington Post, from what I've read. Whatever you're losing on your media properties, I'll make sure you make far more than that in government contracts. And, Viktor Orban did this in Hungary. He reached out to a bunch of media oligarchs and said, start buying up the media and I'll give you government contracts and all kinds of favors and things. And sure enough, all the media now, there is no independent, there is no free speech TV left. There is no Sirius XM left. There is no, although Sirius XM is owned by a billionaire, but at least we've got a progressive channel on it, right? There is nothing, no left-wing media of any significance or consequence at all in Hungary anymore, or in Russia. And when you look at the billionaires here, and by the way, Viktor Orban invited Republicans over to Budapest back in 2022, CPAC. I used to broadcast from the CPAC conferences back in the day. And he got up in front of them and he said to this group of Republicans, he said, have your own media. It's the only way to point out the insanity of the progressive left. So anyhow, you look at, Elon Musk. He flips Twitter to X and starts, promoting Donald Trump relentlessly. And what happens? He gets multi-billion-dollar contracts from the federal government. Mark Zuckerberg, Meta and Facebook, starts filtering in ways that help right-wing content and suppress left-wing content, or at least so is alleged, and certainly seems to be the lived experience of many people. And now Meta has got these multi-billion-dollar contracts with the federal government. Larry Ellison and his family, David, his son, he owns Paramount and CBS, TikTok, or he and his son, between the two of them. And now they're getting, he starts with Oracle, which now has multi-billion-dollar contracts with the federal government. Jeff Bezos, the Washington Post, now, Blue Origin. Hey, let's go to, let's help out NASA and things. They're all, and not to mention Amazon Web Services, data services. So whatever they lose in their media operations, they're making back hugely. And here are the countries that I was able, just with a quick web search, to find are doing the exact same thing, where the government invited billionaires to buy the media and then gave them big media contracts or big non-media contracts to soften the blow. The Czech Republic, Serbia, Slovenia, Turkey, India, Brazil, the Philippines, Colombia, Tunisia, Turkey, Peru, and Ghana. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And it produces headlines like these. These are actual articles that I found that, document this stuff. How oligarchs seize Central Europe's media. Serbia, state influence on media ownership. Media in the Balkans, the rise of the oligarchs. Media oligarchs go shopping. The media in Indonesia, journalism between state and oligarchs. And now here in the United States, these are actual headlines. When billionaire government contractors are also media moguls. So anyhow, this is what's going on. So how do we deal with this? Well, number one, when Democrats regain power, we need to start seriously looking at breaking up these monopolies and going after these people. And now the Democrats have announced, get ready, corporations, the subpoenas are coming. And number two, we need public pressure. People need to be speaking out against this. We did it with Jimmy Kimmel. We didn't pull it off with Stephen Colbert, but we did it with Jimmy Kimmel, and we need to be doing it with more and more media. We need to be pointing them out. I have noticed the comments sections on articles in the Washington Post almost invariably include just ripping Jeff Bezos a new one for the way that he's spinning the news and he's gutting that classic newspaper. So let's get active, friends, and support independent media.
We say fight back!
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Tyranny, From Plato to Trump, Fools, Sycophants, and Citizens by Andrew Fiala. This is from the preface. It starts out with a quote from Mary Wollstonecraft from her book, A Vindication of the Rights of Women. Quote, tyrants would have cause to tremble if reason were to become the rule of duty. We recently witnessed the failure of a would-be tyrant who attempted to subvert the rule of law and overturn the result of a democratic election. The American system was pushed toward a cliff, but constitutional guardrails slowed things down. Conscientious people pumped the brakes, and the system held. This was a lesson of tyranny averted. We should take stock and learn what worked and what needs improvement in our system and in our souls. And while the American crisis of 2020-2021 was frightening, a broader historical perspective helps. The threat of tyranny is common, but the cure is well known. It involves virtuous citizenship and a stable constitution. The tyrant's rise and fall is an old story. Consider, a plague descended on the nation as the tyrant ranted and raved, refusing to admit that he was the cause of the nation's ills. The tyrant lived in a fantasy world of his own creation. He refused to accept what was said by those who spoke truth to power. Instead, he listened only to those who flattered his ego and encouraged him in his delusions. The nation suffered profoundly under the tyrant and his plague. He tried to blame the plague on some other scapegoat. Members of the public were seduced by the tyrant and his sycophants to sacrifice everything on behalf of a lie. Violence erupted. When the awful truth was finally revealed, the chorus reached a tragic conclusion. Our lives were mere shadows, and then there's a block of poetry here. Our lives were mere shadows, happiness fades away to nothing. The tyrant's fall reminds us that no human creation lasts forever. Plague and trouble make victims of us all. This is from Oedipus, the Tyrant, lines 1190. This is the story of Oedipus. It is also the story of Donald Trump. The players in this tragedy are found throughout history. They are the tyrant, his sycophants, and the moronic masses. The tyrant rages, the sycophants simper, the masses cheer and howl, fight and die. As the plague spreads, good things fall apart and decency suffers. This tragedy brings with it the risk of despair. The good news is that the cure for this disease is well known. It is, as Mary Wollstonecraft suggested, reason. Life in general must be made reasonable. This means we need a reasonable constitution as well as wise and virtuous citizens. Wisdom and virtue work together to prevent tyranny. Plato and Aristotle knew this, as did John Adams. Adams wrote in his diary when he was Vice President of the United States, quote, "Tyranny can scarcely be practiced upon a virtuous and wise people." But wisdom, virtue, and reason are often lacking. Wollstonecraft, I've got my Marys wrong. This is Wollstonecraft, I'm sorry. Wollstonecraft laments the fact that, quote, tyranny in whatever part of society it rears its brazen front will ever undermine morality. Tyranny is not only a political problem, it is also a moral and spiritual one. It afflicts our souls as well as churches, businesses, and family life. Wollstonecraft's important contribution was to argue that for the liberation of women in an era when women were oppressed by the tyranny of patriarchal families. Wollstonecraft was a contemporary of Thomas Jefferson and other thinkers of the 18th century Enlightenment. Despite their claims to enlightenment, the heroes of this tradition suffered from moral blindness, as we all do. Jefferson's words inspired a revolution against the tyrant King George III. The words inscribed in the Jefferson Memorial state, "I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man." But Jefferson owned slaves, one of the more obvious forms of tyranny in the world. We must all be careful of our blind spots. Reason aims to shed light by holding up a mirror. The remedy for tyranny is philosophical self-examination. This is an ongoing process, not a panacea. Each generation must seek to make progress on their path to enlightenment. The good news is that we have made progress. Women were liberated and slavery was abolished. The idea that wisdom and virtue can cure tyranny predates the Enlightenment by over 2,000 years. It was the solution proposed by the ancient Greeks, who gave us the very language we will employ here. Words such as tyranny, sycophancy, democracy, and political philosophy. The Greeks emphasized the need for virtue among the players in the political drama. Modern thinkers built upon this and emphasized the need for a rational system of government that prevents tyranny. Tragedy is avoided when leaders and citizens are virtuous and when a stable constitutional system guarantees individual rights, divides power, and creates checks and balances. We have known the cure for thousands of years, but the disease is genetic. Every generation or so, the conditions conspire to bring together an ugly cast of characters that includes the tyrant, his sycophants, and the moronic fools who cheer him on. The book, Tyranny from Plato to Trump, by Andrew Fiala.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, top of the, Wednesday to you. Last night was this execrable, if that's how you say the word, this god-awful State of the Union. Did you watch this thing? Oh man, this was nuts. And the Democrats just, Trump set a trap and the Democrats just walked right into it, as I suggested would happen yesterday and the day before. I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about pardons, policy, and profit, Trump grifting in the White House. In the second hour of our program, Lindsay Graham takes a cue from Joseph Stalin to lock up people. Criticize ICE, you go to prison? Yeah. And Oregon in shock when a man who lived here 30 years, built a business and a family, was deported to Mexico and died. I'll tell you about that. Our city here is just like, oh my God, this was in the local paper, right? And in the third hour of our program, the Supreme Court just made it easier to steal your ballot. I mean, it's just wild stuff. But the State of the Union, actually, even before I talk about the State of the Union, at the same time Trump was ranting last night, Pennsylvania and Maine were counting ballots because there were special elections yesterday in Pennsylvania and Maine. And guess what happened? In Pennsylvania, Anna Tiberico and Jennifer Mazzocco became state representatives. And this is amazing. Mazzocco won her race by 64 points. Her predecessor had won by 33 points. This is, a blue area, but she got 81% of the vote. 64 points. In other words, she doubled the lead of her predecessor. And in Maine, Scott Harriman beat a Republican candidate, Gene Bodine, to hang on to that. I don't have the margin of victory on that. But regardless of what Trump says, the trend is continuing. But basically, number one, he told a whole bunch of lies. I mean, just right up front lies. In the longest State of the Union speech ever, it was an hour and 41 minutes. Remember how Hugo Chavez used to give 2 and 3 hour speeches? How Fidel Castro used to give 4-hour speeches? I mean, this is like tin pot dictator country, right? So anyhow, he bragged, we created a whole bunch of jobs and 100% of them are in the private sector. Yeah, all 181,000 jobs that he created last year. 181,000 jobs. Joe Biden was creating between 1 and 2.5 million jobs every year of his presidency. Even Trump, before the pandemic, was creating jobs at the rate of over 1 million a year. But 181,000. He also said that he got $18 trillion worth of investment in the United States. No, according to the White House website, it's $9 trillion, and it's not. And that's not even investment. That's just people said that they would invest, which is meaningless. People say things to Trump all the time, lying to him because they know that he's lying to them. And then, I mean, this was wild. There's this Ukrainian woman who was killed on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina. And her mother, the woman who was killed was named Irina Zarutska. And her mother was there, and he introduced her mother. And then he said that the mother's daughter was killed by, quote, a hardened criminal set free to kill in America who came in through open borders, end of quote. Which is not true at all. DeCarlos Brown Jr. was the guy who killed her, and he's not an immigrant. He's an American citizen. He was born here. U.S. citizens, in fact, are 2.5 times more likely to be arrested for drug crimes and 2 times more likely to commit violent crimes, including murder, than are undocumented immigrants. So, I mean, it's like such a naked lie that is so easily disproven. But he doesn't care, because what Donald Trump knows and has learned throughout his whole entire life is what Mark Twain said years and years ago, that a lie will get halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its boots on. He said that energy prices are decreasing. He says, when they see energy prices going down to numbers like that, they cannot believe it. Yeah, the average household energy bill went up by 6.7% last year. 112 million electric and 52 million gas customers have seen a price increase in the last year. And because of Trump's attacks on green energy, energy prices are expected to go up by 18% over the course of the next decade. He bragged that gas prices are now below $2.30 a gallon in most states, and in some places $1.99 a gallon. Yeah, not so much. According to AAA, Oklahoma is the only state that has gas at $2.30 a gallon, or $2.37 actually. And in some states, it's over $4.60. He claimed he ended 8 wars in his first 10 months. Most of these things were not even considered wars. The Thailand-Cambodia conflict, for example, which goes back a century. These guys have been fighting a border war forever, is on pause right now because Trump said he would increase tariffs on them if they didn't stop fighting. That's not ending a war. It's just the whole thing. But I think the biggest takeaway for me was that the Democrats walked into a trap. Trump set this thing up to, like his, stand if you think America should protect Americans from illegal immigrants. And the Democrats, of course, couldn't stand. I mean, it's just, it was a setup. And then he looks at them and he says, you should be ashamed of yourself. And the Republicans continued standing for like a minute and a half. I mean, it was just, this was the made for Fox News moment, right? Above and beyond, anything rash. The Democrats just never should have shown up. And next year and the year after that and the year after that, don't even bother going. Don't even bother going, guys. There's no point. He's going to use you as props. Now, one of the more interesting takes that I got in my email this morning is from Timothy Snyder's Substack, snyder.substack.com. And he points out, now this guy is like one of the world's leading experts on fascism. right? He's written books about it. He's on TV all the time. He's one of the two experts on fascism who left the United States to go to Canada when Trump became president because they were concerned that we were going to become a fascist country. And he writes, Trump is failing at fascism. For him to succeed in a fascist transition, he needs a bloody, popular, victorious war, and that's out of his reach. And he talks about how the State of the Union was full of fascist atmospherics. It seemed fascist. It felt fascist. But it was also blowhard exhaustion, Timothy Snyder says. He said fascism suits him well. Fascism celebrates a leader who transcends law and aims to unite the people with their destiny. It's got great stories of struggle and talks about an imaginary golden age. All that stuff was in Trump's speech last night. Fascism also demands an enemy. You have to have an enemy. And Trump, for Hitler it was Jews, for Trump it's immigrants. But then he called the Democrats in the audience crazy. He set them up to attack them. And this is exactly what Hitler did with the socialists in Germany in the 1930s and the communists, is make them the enemy. I mean, but most important, so we're checking the boxes here, Trump as a fascist. But most importantly, Timothy Snyder says you got to have a foreign war for a fascist to really consolidate his power. And Iran can bite back. Iran can make life really, really miserable for Donald Trump and kill a lot of people. And Trump knows it. And, he's got this huge military buildup. And if he steps into this thing as his way of trying to cement his fascist takeover of the United States, frankly, I think it's going to blow up in his face. Also, pardons, policy, and profits. Where does governance end and grift begin? We'll talk about that right after the break. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
For right now, though, Donald Trump's fascist project continues. The jackbooted thugs are coming, right? They're in cities all over America right now. Jackboots forever. And welcome back. Bill in Morgantown, Indiana. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Tom, hey, good afternoon.
Hey.
Listen, I watched the speech last night more for theater than I did for anything on either side of policy. Mm-hmm. But something that I was curious about, I was looking at Real Clear Politics today, their conglomerate poll. They have a group of polls that they average together. And what was interesting, and I kept thinking this, and I'll see if you could maybe tell me why, maybe messaging. Trump is like 14 points underwater. The Republican Party is 14 points underwater. But the Democratic Party, and this is across all polls, not just Rasmussen, is sitting at 20%. So despite as bad as Trump
20% underwater, you mean?
Yeah. Well, the Democratic Party is 20% underwater, and then they mentioned these local elections, like including Virginia, that when you're talking local elections, that the federal government does not get directly involved in it, because if you got a town councilman and you got to vote for him, well, shoot. He's not going to help you anything about Iran. He might be able to help you a little bit.
What you're highlighting there, Bill, is the big distinction that makes a lot of the statistics you were just quoting meaningless, which is that when people vote, they don't vote for parties generally, although I think that more and more of that is happening, but typically they vote for the local candidate. Yeah,
unfortunately. I mean, they're not voting for the candidate, they're voting for the candidate, not the party.
Right. More often than not, although we're seeing that trend change right now during the Trump presidency, because people are so offended, not just by Trump, but by the fact that there's not a single Republican willing to stand up to him. And I would argue that 20% disapproval with the Democratic Party, like if a pollster called me right now and said, do you approve of what the Democratic Party is doing? I would be like, well, yes and no. I mean, I'd like them to be a hell of a lot more aggressive.
Well, let me
that doesn't mean I'm not a Democrat and I don't support the Democrats. I won't vote for a Democrat. All those are true.
But let me ask you something I brought up to you a couple of weeks ago, and since last night brought it to pass. I had mentioned to you about Virginia, and the Democrats have taken control of everything. And I remember I asked you this question: if the state's got a $3 billion surplus, and they do, that's fact, why would you raise so many taxes? Because even the polling has come out now in Virginia that the people don't want all that done. In fact, they don't even want the redistricting to be done.
Well, apparently they do because they just voted for it.
No. The General Assembly voted for it. It's got to be a referendum in April.
Right.
That's what the whole thing has been about if they follow the protocol.
Yeah.
But I think with the protocol out the window.
Yeah, we'll see. Bill, I'm sorry. I don't live in Virginia, and I don't, frankly, pay attention to Virginia politics. So I don't.
No, it's not so much of that. It's because of Spanberger, because she ran as a moderate. And she's not a moderate.
Well,
she doesn't. Huh?
She's anti-Trump. I mean, she's not refusing.
Well, yeah.
I think what defines a moderate in today's Democratic Party is that they're willing to take money from corporate interests, and progressives aren't. I mean, that's the main line of cleavage that I can see. So, you know, she gave a pretty good speech last night, Bill. Did you catch the Democratic response?
Yes, I did, because it was Governor Spanberger, even though I don't live there anymore.
I thought she did a pretty good job.
That was the first time I've ever heard her speak.
Yeah.
To be honest about it.
Yeah, me too. Bill, I'm sorry, I'm out of time. I got to run, but good talking to you. Thank you for the call. It's 19 minutes past the hour. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So back when Donald Trump debated Kamala Harris, he was asked about world leaders and whatnot, and he went off on this thing praising a guy named Viktor Orban and saying he's a tough guy, he's smart, he's the prime minister of Hungary, and he loves me, basically. So who is Viktor Orban? Well, it turns out Viktor Orban is a guy who took over Hungary in a regular election, the prime minister, and then turned it into basically a neo-fascist paradise for right-wingers. All the media is now controlled by right-wing oligarchs. He's packed the courts. He's changed the Constitution so that they have things like gerrymandering and voter suppression, so he always wins every election. He throws people in jail for criticizing him, even on Facebook. I mean, this is what Hungary has become. Fox News loves it. Tucker Carlson did his show from there for a week, and that's what Donald Trump wants to do to America. You can read the whole thing over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Trump's New Hero, the strongman who crushed democracy in Hungary. Check it out.
Well, now, I didn't fly all this way for the sightseeing. I came to redecorate. I rolled in town with a motorcade shine, gold-plated grins and a brand new line. Say freedom's cute, but it's looking tired. Let me show you how a boss gets wired. You like your rules, I prefer command. Sharp little salute and a heavy hand. You build a dream, that's very sweet, but I look better in the driver's seat. These jack boots are made for walking, marching straight across your town. These jack boots are made for talking, and they love that stomping sound. One of these days, these jack boots are gonna walk all over you.
Welcome back. 22 minutes past the hour. Pardons, policy, and profits. Where does governance end and grift begin is the title of my daily take in the Hartmann Report today. And I started out by pointing out that, we just watched the State of the Union done by the most corrupt president and presidency in the history of the United States. And I would argue that, outside of like Viktor Orban in Hungary, I don't think you can really call it a democracy any longer, although it's got some fragments of that. I mean, Orban's actually facing an election next month. But by and large, outside of that, and Russia, of course, ceasing to be a democracy under Putin, I don't think that any of the advanced democracies in the world are anywhere near as corrupt as Donald Trump. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Rumors have been flying for years. I mean, ever since Giuliani came out and said that he and Trump were splitting, they were selling pardons for $2 million each, and they were splitting the money down the middle. I think he's at it again. Judd Legum over at Popular Information, popular.info, is reporting that the parent company of Crypto.com made a series of donations to Trump's main super PAC, MAGA Inc., amounting to around $35 million. Now, the super PAC is set up in a way that it can pay, it can't just give money to Donald Trump, but it can pay the expenses like, you know, his lawyer to defend him when people like E.G. Carroll sue him, his lawyers that his sons need when they're cutting business deals with foreign countries to put together the deals and, you know, do the contracts. The super PAC is actually has already paid over $50 million in legal fees for Donald Trump. So Judd Legum is talking about how this company Crypto.com, or the parent company Crypto.com, which now is in the prediction market business as well as the cryptocurrency business, made this huge donation, this whole huge series of donations. It constituted 10% of the total revenue to MAGA.Inc. And then he writes, 25 days later, the Trump administration's Commodities Futures Trading Commission intervened on Crypto.com's behalf in a high-stakes lawsuit in federal court. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, you know, the New York Times reporting how the United Arab Emirates invested $500 million, $500 million in Trump's new crypto scheme. You know, and what did they get for that? They got advanced AI chips that had been forbidden to them before because the UAE has a mutual defense agreement with China. So anything you give to the UAE ends up in China, and that was the whole concern, was we don't want China to have these advanced chips that can have military application. And Trump now is sending literally hundreds of thousands of these chips to the UAE after they gave $500 million to his company. This is like Jared Kushner defending, you know, in the last administration, defending Mr. Bonesaw and backing Saudi Arabia in their blockade of Qatar. And then what do the Saudis do? They give Jared $2 billion for his investment company. Not to mention the millions that they gave to, perhaps hundreds of millions, we don't know the amount, it's never been disclosed, that they gave to Donald Trump so that he could put these live golf tours in his tacky golf motels. Or when Ivanka Trump was a senior White House advisor and the Chinese gave her $34 million, or 34 Chinese trade marks worth millions. And then Trump immediately reversed his position on this Chinese telecom ZTE and on Huawei. I mean, Trump's boys are openly selling Trump-branded, you know, hotel and golf deals all over the world. India, Indonesia, Oman, Vietnam, Romania, Bali, Maldives, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. They're making them mind-bogglingly rich. And it works both ways. I mean, when Pam Bondi was investigated at Trump University, Trump had his phony charity, which was later shut down, write an illegal $25,000 campaign contribution to her, and suddenly she dropped all the investigation into Trump University. I mean, you know, it's like this is just the most corrupt administration ever. He pardoned Zhao, the billionaire founder of Binance. Binance is now working with the Trump people on a $2 billion stablecoin deal anchored in the Trump entity. Russ Ulbricht, the Silk Road guy who was serving a life sentence for running the biggest illegal drug, illegal gun, and human trafficking operation on the dark web in the history of the world, Trump pardons him. I mean, it's just wild. It's like this is the most corrupt administration in history, and we need to be talking about it in those terms.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And this guy has made $4 billion since he came into the White House. No president ever before did that. So what say you? Did you see the State of the Union? What do you think? Give me a shout. We'll talk right after this. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is by John Pavlovitz. It's titled, If God is Love, Don't Be a Jerk, Finding a Faith That Makes Us Better Humans. This is from the introduction titled, You Had One Job. If you want a good laugh, Google the phrase, you had one job. The results are hilariously tragic parade of seemingly impossible fails, unfathomably poor planning, and face-palming inducing human error. A piece of melted cheese on top of a fast food burger bun. The word stop misspelled on a street crossing. A keep to the right sign with its arrow facing left. A toilet lid inexplicably installed below the seat itself. It's strange stuff. Seeing these stupefying train wrecks and task execution tends to elicit two responses, usually making you feel a little bit better about yourself while simultaneously wanting to track down the culprits in an effort to understand how they managed to neglect the primary duty assigned to them. We begin to speculate. Were they temporarily distracted? Did they not properly comprehend the instructions? Did they feel as though someone above them in the chain of command dropped the ball? Were they just plain lazy? When people miss the point so spectacularly, we want to know how and why, because that kind of failure feels impossible from the outside. It seems unfathomable to get the main thing wrong, and seeing it happen sparks our curiosity. I imagine Jesus knows well the curiosity that comes with watching people give clear direction lose their way. As a longtime Christian by aspiration, if not always in practice, I often envision an exasperated Jesus coming back and the first words out of his mouth to his followers as his feet hit the pavement being, "You had one job, love. So what happened?" I wonder what massive wave of excuses and rationalizations would come flooding from the mouths of the faithful multitude in front of him, how they might justify their mistreatment of the assailed humanity in their care, the verbal and theological gymnastics they'd attempt to avoid culpability for their own cruelty. Would they stridently recite him a verse from Leviticus? Would they blame the liberal media for morally corrupting America? Would they talk about people's wicked lifestyle choices? Would they argue that they were loving the sinners in their midst, but simply hating their sin? Would they frantically offer up the same platitudes and parrot back the same partisan talking points that they've gotten used to brandishing on social media and proffering in Sunday school classes? And if all else failed to convince him, would they quote Jesus to himself in a desperate Hail Mary effort to pass the buck to him for what they did or failed to do while supposedly standing up for him? And there, fully seen in the piercing gaze of the namesake of their very faith tradition, with all their justifications and excuses exhausted and only their fully exposed hearts left, would any of their responses be sufficient reasons for refusing to love? When that was the singular task and primary commandment that he left them responsible for tending to? In my less compassionate moments, I admit that I like to picture it not going well for them. I know it's far less than admirable, let alone Christ-like. But some days my heart strangely warms at the possibility of a few billion brimstone-breathing evangelists, sanctimonious conservative politicians, and plank-eyed judgmental Christian neighbors all having to explain themselves in a sanctified flop-swept moment they can't exegete or gaslight themselves out of, and they all get what they have coming to them. But my self-righteous revelry doesn't last long. The mirror calls me out as I remember what I think I know about Jesus, and that rescues me from full-blown, unabated hubris. I begin to wonder what my excuses might be, how I'd spin the enmity I manufacture here, what story I'd come up with for not doing the one task we both know compromises a disciple's job description. And if I really believe what I'm supposed to believe, are any of my justifications sufficient? If God is love, and if Jesus is the perfect expression of that love, and if I'm supposedly trying to follow that Jesus, how could I be so love impaired so frequently? How do I miss the singular point so consistently? It's not as if I didn't know what I was signing up for, like some lengthy online user agreement I blindly accept in haste, missing the bombshell fine print underneath. Having read the Gospels a few million times, give or take a few 100,000, I know the primary commandment is not something I need to excavate from cumbersome layers of foreign language translations and cultural mores of the time. Jesus himself clearly laid out the most important commandment for me and for everyone who's ever cracked open a Bible, and even most people who've never cracked open a Bible. And so we'd all understand what's being asked of us going in, so there would be no post-altar call buyer's remorse or deathbed claims of a sucker punch, bait and switch. Loving God and neighbor and self is the elemental stuff of Christian prayers, songs, T-shirts, and bumper stickers, and we know that. But as the master Morpheus said to protege Neo in the first and only truly great Matrix film, there is a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. Love is the path that Jesus laid out for us. The book, John Pavlovitz's If God is Love, Don't Be a Jerk, Finding a Faith That Makes Us Better Humans. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
There's a gold-plated door on a marble floor where the deals get cut in the dark. Handshake slick, just sign here quick, put a $sign over the heart. Crypto kings and oil men whisper low, wire it through. Justice bends when the money talks, tell me what it won't let you do. How much for mercy? How much for grace? How much to look the law in the face? Of power's a coin in a rich man's hand. Who's gonna pay for this broken land? Planes touch down with a billion dreams wrapped in a foreign flag. Policy shifts with a tightened fist while the working man just grabs. 4 billion heavy, 14 months gone, freedom sold by the pound. If truth's for sale and the gavel's frail, who's gonna stand their ground? How much for mercy? How much for grace?
35 minutes past the hour. Yep, Donald Trump selling pardons, among other things. Very interesting here. You'll recall a week or so ago, I shared with you the story that was in the Epstein files of the FBI interviewing this woman 4 times, who said that when she was 13 years old, Donald Trump forced her to have oral sex with him. She bit him. He beat her up as a result and apparently threw her out of the limousine. I'm a little fuzzy on the details on that. And that nobody in the media was reporting it. Well, just to confirm the old saying that the cover-up is worse than the crime, the headline, the top headline in today's New York Times online edition, breaking news, Epstein files are missing records about woman who made claim against Trump. An unverified account that Donald Trump assaulted a woman when she was a minor is mentioned, but several memos related to her account are not in the files. It is breaking through. Also, the second one is Lawrence Summers is going to resign from Harvard after Epstein revelations. And Maureen Comey, who was fired because she was looking into the Epstein case, she just joined a big New York law firm. So interesting stuff going on. All right, what's on your mind today? John in Niles, Michigan. Hey, John, what's up?
Welcome to the Grifters Price is Right.
There you go. Exactly. That's my op-ed today.
Be sure to tune in to Constitutional Jeopardy and the Wheel of Misfortune.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, come on down. A fleet of new Teslas. The original chainsaw used by Elon Musk, autographed by Big Balls. $2 billion in top secret AI chips. A private island with no extradition treaties. 400 million Boeing 747. Secret deals to lower tariffs. Hundreds of boxes of top secret information for billions of dollars. A week's vacation to Kiev to see Russian missile strikes on Ukrainian civilians while staying warm near burning buildings. a trip to Jeffrey Epstein's Fantasy Island with Harry Villachange ringing the bell, shouting, "The plane, the plane," during their bash at Trump's ballroom. A one-way trip for the unredeemable souls to eternal hell, never to see the kind, loving face of humanity or God again.
John, you should be writing for Saturday Night Live. That's brilliant. John in Niles, Michigan. Thank you, John. George in Cripple Creek, Virginia. Hey, George, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, interesting article in Vestia yesterday. What nuclear weapons do Britain and France have? What you need to know. And according to the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, Britain and France are preparing to secretly transfer to Ukraine either some nuclear weapons or a dirty bomb. And they point out, France is the only EU country with a nuclear deterrent, and although a member of NATO, it's not subject to NATO nuke controls, and France has about 40 land-based missiles and 240 submarine-launched ballistic missiles. UK has Trident missiles, and U.S. nuclear surface-to-air missiles or air-surface missiles can be launched from F-35s. And they point out, they're saying that, Britain and France wouldn't transfer ready-made nuke warheads to Ukraine, but transfer technology and components so they could claim that this was strictly a Ukrainian domestic-based nuclear weapons program. And it's easier to implement, but it would be a security threat since components for these nuclear weapons could wind up in the hands of terrorists or countries unfriendly to the EU because of Ukrainian corruption.
Wow. So, George, as a former intelligence guy and somebody who speaks Russian and Ukrainian, is it your sense that this announcement by the Russian newspaper is a precursor to the possibility that they may try to, a false flag event, set off a dirty bomb someplace in Ukraine or Russia?
The Russians are famous for that, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're laying the groundwork for that.
This is what they did to the Chechens, right?
Yeah, exactly. And where was Grozny when they leveled that city?
Yep. Yep.
And, I wouldn't, like I say, like you said, anybody but us, plausible deny. It wasn't us that did it. It was the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
It's really getting interesting. I don't know what's going to happen over there.
It would take a really dark turn, but I mean, the simple reality is in the last year, Putin has gained 1% of the land of Ukraine, and he's lost 500,000 soldiers. And
that's not a good return on investment. They're thinking they're in World War I, where they're storming the trenches and just cannon fodder. Yeah. Remember seeing that movie Enemy at the Gates?
I never saw it. No, I'm sorry.
About Stalingrad. Well, they have a scene where 1 in 3 Russian soldiers has a Mosin-Nagant rifle. And when one is killed, the other one picks it up. And if any of the Russian soldiers retreat, they have Maxim guns deployed in the rear. And if they retreat, they mow them all down.
Whoa. And that's historically accurate.
And they're saying that, Russian commanders are, crucifying them, and, any Russian that retreats or tries to surrender and, gutting them and all that. So, I don't know. I think he's going to run out of willing recruits sometime soon when those stories get out.
Yeah, and his economy, which is only the size of Texas's economy, I mean, it's small compared to even some EU countries, is really struggling. He's got horrible inflation. And increasingly, Ukraine is taking out energy infrastructure in Russia now.
Yeah, right. The oil production facilities and the pipelines and sanctions against their shadow tanker fleet are, taking a toll on Russian oil sales. So
right. So the bottom line of all this, George, is that Putin is losing essentially, and that if he does lose, he will be. I don't want to say put to death, but that's what's in my mind. He will be taken care of by his own people, don't you think? And therefore, he's just extremely desperate, and that's why he might be doing a dirty bomb to blame it on the Ukrainians to justify some sort of a nuclear intervention or some massive, wave of attacks.
Exactly. Dictators don't do too well when they lose, like Mussolini being hung from a lamppost, or
Upside down.
Putin we better be careful of high-rise windows or mysterious plane crashes, because if he loses, he's going to wind up like that.
Yeah, amazing. George, I always learn something when you call. I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Your program, Tom. Enjoy listening to you on Free Speech TV.
Great. Thank you, George. Good talking to you. It is 43 and a half minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Welcome to the place where smart people get their news. Be right back with you. Welcome back. Morris in Inglewood, California. Hey, Morris, what's on your mind today?
Hey, what's going on, Thomas? Check this out now. You know, a broken clock is correct twice a day. You know that.
You bet.
And I want to give a shout out. Y'all work with a brother. I want to give a shout out to America's favorite taco, Mr. Donald Trump. I really do. You know, all this stuff that's going on over there, threatening with Iran and whatnot, that's all bravado. The United States is not going to go to war with Iran. Iran is not a collection of defenseless fishermen, Tom. You know that.
Yeah.
In addition to that, China and Russia, they're not going to let Iran fall to the United States, okay? And forget that part. Everybody's talking about nuclear this and nuclear that. Well, Iran leads the world in terms of missiles technology. Their missile technology is so awesome. Even Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traoré is buying them. The United States government realizes that their missiles will take out our carriers, Tom.
Yeah, Iranian missiles and drones are being used in Ukraine right now by the Russians.
Yeah, and there's nothing we can't even fix our toilets on our carriers, Tom.
Yeah, you're right.
What you think we're going to do? All them 7,000 sailors, Tom, they'd be killed. So I really want to give a shout out to the broken clock, America's favorite taco, Donald Trump, that he had enough intelligence to listen to his advisors and not fool with starting a war with Iran just because the Israelis want you to.
At least so far.
That's what I mean. Well, Tom, it's not going to happen because I'm going to tell you why we're not going to war. It goes beyond just Iran, and now we're talking about the Strait of Hormuz, okay? But you all don't know about the Strait of Hormuz.
It's like 15% of the world's oil, isn't it?
Well, I'll let you preach, Tom. You know what that would translate into in terms of our cost for energy.
Yep.
Nobody wants to deal with it, and nobody gets it passed. Every country in the world would be affected by that.
Yep.
Okay, so nobody wants to deal with it. We've already isolated ourselves. America has. I mean, Jesus, Tom, we don't really want people to get collectively together and start working against us. And if we shut down, if we coerce, if we force the Iranians to shut down that Strait of Hormuz, and if the Iranians have to blow up our carriers in the ocean, it's going to be a bad look, even for a guy like Trump. So he's about money. He's getting his money. He's smiling all the way to the bank. Okay, he promised no wars, and I really want to say I appreciate him, Tom. I really do appreciate him not going to war with Iran, because you know when these guys get in office, when they want a distraction or they want to get famous or whatever, remember George Bush, they get a war.
Here's the problem that he's got, though, Morris. He's got the largest armada. You know, he's got hundreds of planes or something on the order of 100 bombers. He's got fighter planes. He's got, you know, aircraft carriers and destroyers and nuclear subs and everything right off the coast of Iran right now. I mean, this is the largest mobilization since George W. Bush illegally attacked Iraq. And yet it's meaningless if he's not willing to use it. And the Iranians know that. And if they think he's not willing to use it, they're just going to laugh at him. And he knows that. And so he's stuck in a really tough situation here.
Tom, if I'm Trump, let them laugh at me. Of course, I'm going to the bank. I'm rich, but let them laugh at me. I don't care what they say. I made my money. And it's suicidal to mess with those guys. They're not defensive. Tom, how old are we? 400 or 500 years old? Iran, 7,000 years old?
Yeah.
You know, and one thing I heard a guy say something about us Americans. I was included because I was just as bad. We get our knowledge and wisdom about military stuff from movies. This ain't no movie.
Yeah, good point, Morris. Morris, you always bring insights. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Good talking to you. It's 48 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just 1 minute. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So what do we call the really, really mind-bogglingly rich? You know, at the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interest or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, you know, some of them want to call themselves tech bros. Like, that's kind of a good thing, you know, like tech is positive and bros, you know, like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out. 49 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Sandy in Nelma, Wisconsin. Hey, Sandy, what's on your mind today?
Hi there. I'm curious if you remember when Donald Trump had all those boxes in his bathroom and all those people there as well that were looking through some of these. Do you remember them showing that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And somebody had obviously gone through a bunch of those boxes because they were spilled all over the floor. And guess who was at Mar-a-Lago just before that? At least one Russian spy that we know of and at least one Chinese spy that we know of. And those boxes contain things like our nuclear secrets.
Nuclear secrets, and what about what may Donald Trump have done to these women along with some of them that have seen these files?
Oh, that's interesting. You think some of the Epstein files were hidden in Donald at Mar-a-Lago?
I do. He's the reason that they... Yes, this is to save him.
Yeah.
And his rich friends.
Yeah. Did you see the news story that they're discovering that there are storage facilities, you know, storage units, apparently scattered all over the country that Jeffrey Epstein had that are filled with Epstein stuff, including videos and CDs. And, you know, this is... this thing is not going away, Sandy. It's growing day by day. Sandy, thank you for the call.
I hope not, and thank you to the ladies and all your strength. God be with you all. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Sandy. Well said. Mark in Valley, Washington. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Hey, Tom. First off, I want to give a thanks to you and Free Speech TV because I do a classic radio show Fridays here on the public radio station, and at the break in between the 2 hours, I put out some facts, and most of the time I'm getting them facts from you or Democracy Now! So I just wanted to give you a shout out.
Good on you, Mark. That's great. I'm glad. It's nice to hear that you're doing that.
Well, you guys are the beacon of hope out there.
No, that you're doing the show too. I mean, that's cool. You're involved in the media. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I'm going back to where you say the Democrats walked into a trap, and my thing is that as long as we have these waste of air leadership at the top of the party, Schumer and Joaquin Jeffries, they're going to keep walking into these traps because they're weak and incompetent. I mean, Jeffries to not clap and be silent. Well, being silent makes you weak and compliant.
I agree. In my opinion, they should not have shown up last night. They should have seen this coming. These guys are smart. They should be smart enough to know this. I was just astonished, when Trump did his stand up if you support America and the Democrats didn't stand up. It's terrible. By the way, Mark, if you're doing a music show, right, on your local station?
Yes.
If you want to use any of Louise's songs, they're over at HartmannReport.com under the Daily Song tab, and they're all downloadable and they're all free, and you don't even need to give credit. It's just feel free to use them however you want.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm one of these people that would negatively rate the Democrats.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to vote for them.
Yeah, we have no alternative right now, Mark. And there are a lot of good Democrats out there, too. And frankly, the bottom line is the only way we're going to get America back, we're going to go back to an America where the middle class is growing and democratic values, small d democratic values are respected, is if people like you and me take over the Democratic Party. And that means supporting it over the short term and working within it over the long term. Mark, thanks for the call, and good luck with your show. That's great to hear. Lynn in North Bend, Oregon. Hey, Lynn, what's up?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Well, sort of. You need to get a little closer to your phone, but yeah. What's
Can
up?
you hear me now?
Yes. What's on your mind, Lynn?
Thank you. Okay, last night I saw the most terrific State of the Swamp.
Oh, you watched that. I had to watch the official one, so I couldn't.
Oh, you got to watch it and share it and share it and share. Oh my, it's the best. It is so critical right now. I can't even explain. It's the most hopeful, fantastic program. It goes on. It has Robert De Niro actually helped start it with Miles Taylor there in Portland. And the frogs were on stage, and there were veterans, there was comedians, there were the two different mayors. One from anyway.
Jacob Fry from Minneapolis, and I forget the mayor of St. Paul. Her?
Oh, there was and comedians and the skits, and it was the best TV and the best. News I've seen in so long. I had to share.
I wish I could.
And they also had a bunch of activists, of course, but they had a federal. This is a group of attorney generals to a group, and they want their information out. It's federaloverreach.org. Okay, and it's defiance.org. But when you look up the YouTube. I've never seen this before, so when you look up the YouTube for this last night, it's defiance.dot.org. So that's a YouTube name. Okay, I have two more real quick.
Lynn, I'm sorry,
okay.
you get one rant. There's somebody else who wants to talk here. Bob in Cardiff, California. Hey, Bob, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, good morning, Tom.
Hey.
Yeah, I just call in when I feel like something's been missed by the media, and it wasn't, besides the dog barking in the background, but about 5 o'clock this morning on Amy Goodman, she had on live the girl from Minnesota who got drug out of her car. She was an American citizen, got carried away with her hands behind her back by her wrists and her
She was at the State of the Union last night, and they dragged her out again, right?
Yeah, and nobody is they didn't only drag her out, they took her to jail till 4 a.m.
Now, why did they do that? Did she?
Because she stood up silently.
She didn't speak out?
No, she was live on Amy Goodman this morning at way too early in the morning for West Coast time we are.
I get it.
But everybody seems to have overlooked that or missed it or whatever.
Wow.
And she was arrested, and I apologize, but I did watch the whole thing last night.
So did
and
I.
They didn't show it then. They showed Al Green getting escorted out.
Yeah.
And she was a guest of Ilhan Omar.
Huh.
And I just feel like that should be big news.
It should be.
It's
You're right.
been totally overlooked by, MSNBC or MS Now, everybody that I have the problem of listening to because I'm addicted or whatever.
I get it.
So,
Bob, thanks for bringing that to our attention. I was aware of the story, but I somehow missed it in today's news. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're hitting the top of the hour here. On the other side, Lindsay Graham is imitating Joseph Stalin. I'll give you the details right after. This is shocking and insanely dangerous. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. The subtitle, Why You Can't Pay Attention and How to Think Deeply Again. This is from the introduction titled Walking in Memphis. When he was 9 years old, my godson developed a brief but freakishly intense obsession with Elvis Presley. He took to singing Jailhouse Rock at the top of his voice with all the low crooning and pelvis jiggling of the king himself. He didn't know this style had become a joke, so he offered it with all the heart-catching sincerity of a preteen who believes he's being cool. In the brief pauses before he started singing it all over again, he demanded to know everything about Elvis. And so I jabbered out the rough outline of that inspiring, sad, stupid story. Elvis was born in one of the poorest towns in Mississippi, a place far, far away, I said. He arrived in the world alongside his twin brother, who died a few minutes later. As he grew up, his mother told him that if he sang to the moon every night, his brother could hear his voice. So he sang and sang. He began to perform in public just as television was taking off. So in a sudden swoosh, he became more famous than anyone had ever before been. Everywhere Elvis went, people would scream until his world became a chamber of screams. He retreated into a cocoon of his own construction where he gloried in his possessions in place of his lost freedom. For his mother, he bought a palace and named it Graceland. I skimmed through the rest, the descent into addiction, the sweating, gurning, stage jammering in Vegas, the death at the age of 42. Whenever my godson, who I'll call Adam, I've changed some details here to avoid identifying him, asked questions about how the story ended, I got him to duet Blue Moon with me instead. You saw me standing alone, he sang in his little voice, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. One day, Adam looked at me very earnestly and asked, Johann, will you take me to Graceland one day? Without really thinking, I agreed. Do you promise? Do you really promise? I said I did. And I never gave it another thought until everything had gone wrong. 10 years later, Adam was lost. He had dropped out of school when he was 15, and he spent literally almost all his waking hours at home alternating blankly between screens. His phone, an infinite scroll of WhatsApp and Facebook messages, and his iPad on which he watched a blur of YouTube and porn. At moments, I could still see in him traces of the joyful little boy who sang Viva Las Vegas, but it was like that person had broken into smaller, disconnected fragments. He struggled to stay with the topic of conversation for more than a few minutes without jerking back to his screen or abruptly switching to another topic. He seemed to be whirring at the speed of Snapchat, somewhere where nothing still or serious could reach him. He was intelligent, decent, kind, but it was like nothing could gain any traction in his mind. During the decade in which Adam had become a man, this fracturing seemed to be happening to some degree to many of us. The sensation of being alive in the early 21st century consisted of the sense that our ability to pay attention, to focus, was cracking and breaking. I could feel it happening to me. I'd buy piles of books and I'd glimpse them guiltily from the corner of my eye as I told myself, just one more tweet. I still read a lot, but with each year that passed, it felt more and more like running up a down escalator. I had just turned 40, and wherever my generation gathered, we would lament our lost capacity for concentration, as if it was a friend who had vanished one day at sea and never been seen since. Then one evening, as we lay on a large sofa, each staring at our own ceaselessly shrieking screens, I looked at Adam and felt a low dread. We can't live like this, I said to myself. Adam, I said softly, let's go to Graceland. What? I reminded him of the promise that I had made to him so many years before. He couldn't even remember those blue moon days, nor my pledge to him. But I could see that the idea of breaking this numbing routine ignited something in him. He looked up at me and asked if I was serious. I am, I said, but there's one condition. I'll pay for us to go 4,000 miles. We'll go to Memphis and New Orleans. We'll go all over the South, anywhere you want. But I can't do it if when we get there, all you're going to do is stare at your phone. You have to promise to leave it switched off except at night. We have to return to reality. We have to connect with something that matters to us. He swore he would, and a few weeks later, we lifted off from London Heathrow toward the land of the Delta Blues. When you arrive at the gates of Graceland, there's no longer a human being whose job is to show you around. You're handed an iPad, and you put in little earbuds, and the iPad tells you what to do. Turn left, turn right, walk forward. In each room, the iPad, in the voice of some forgotten actor, tells you about the room you're in, and a photograph of it appears on the screen. So we walked around Graceland alone, staring at the iPad. We were surrounded by Canadians and Koreans and the whole United Nations of blank-faced people looking down, seeing nothing around them. I watched them as they walk, feeling more and more tense. Occasionally, somebody would look away from the iPad, and I felt a flicker of hope, and I'd try to make eye contact with them to shrug, to say, hey, we're the only ones looking around. We're the ones who traveled thousands of miles. The book Stolen Focus by Johann Hari.
We say fight back!
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the second hour of our program. One of the questions that I asked Ali Velshi, was it Monday? I think he was on our program, or was it Tuesday? In any case, one of the questions that I asked him, and he was very concerned about as well, and his answer was, we are currently holding 40,000 detainees. The Trump administration, and we have 235 concentration camps to do it with. The Trump administration wants to expand that to at least 80,000 and perhaps several 100,000 people under basically permanent arrest in the United States. At the same time that they're trying to do that, they're saying that they're engaging in mass deportation. But if you're paying a private prison company $750 a day per prisoner to lock people up so that you can transfer hundreds of billions of dollars of federal money into the hands of these two massive private prison corporations who then hand back millions and millions of dollars to multiple Republican members of Congress and candidates for public office. If that's the plan, who's going to be filling these prisons? Who are the people who are going to be put in them? We're going to run out of criminal illegal immigrants, right? Or aliens, or whatever you want to call them. I mean, this is, where do you go next? Well, I think Trump set part of that up last night when he said that the Democrats are crazy, that the Democrats hate America, that the Democrats, they refuse to stand when I said, shouldn't we defend America? I mean, Trump is setting up the Democratic Party, members of the Democratic Party, elected Democrats, as the enemy. And what do you do with the enemy? You kill them or you imprison them, right? Well, here's where it gets wild. Back in 1927, the Soviet Union passed a law. It was called Article 58 of the Russian Penal Code that gave the state the power to prosecute, quote, counter-revolutionary activity. Now, the revolution, the government itself was called the revolutionary government, right? So basically anti-government activity. And thus, they created this system of gulags, they called them, what we would call them prison camps or detention centers, all across Russia. Many of them still exist. This is where Alexei Navalny was sent to one of these things in Siberia, you'll recall. So they set up these prison camps all over Russia and put in them people who were protesting the government's actions because, hey, it's anti-government activity. Well, now you've got Presidential Memorandum number 7 that just comes right out and says that if you advocate non-traditional American values, if you don't advocate traditional American values, in other words, if you're in favor of gay marriage or you're not a Christian, then you can go to prison. Then it actually doesn't say prison. It says you will be designated an enemy combatant or a domestic terrorist, or words to that effect. I'd have to go back and read the thing to give you the exact language. But the point is that they've clearly identified people like you and me. All they need now is the legislation to make this completely legal so that the courts can't stop them. And Lindsey Graham and Eric Schmidt, Senator Graham and Senator Schmidt are trying to provide that legal basis. On February 9th, Lindsey Graham, this is from Wendy Lawrence over at wendy664.substack.com. On February 9th, Lindsey Graham handed the Trump White House exactly what it wanted, the End Sanctuary Cities Act, a bill that criminalizes, quote, obstruction of immigration laws by official interference, end quote. Now, this one doesn't specifically say that if you're protesting ICE, you go to prison. What it says is if you are an elected official, if you're a mayor, or not even an elected, if you have an official job, if you're a mayor, if you're a governor, if you're a legislator, if you're the sheriff who says, no, I'm not going to arrest people without a warrant, or no, I'm going to stop you from arresting people without a warrant, any of those positions, you go to prison. And if you fail to report somebody doing this, you can also go to prison, 10 years in prison. The bill defines as a criminal alien any non-citizen has been charged or convicted of a crime, and says that any state or local official who blocks efforts to imprison people who have committed murder or sex offense against a minor, that official, like the governor of Minnesota, would face 25 years in federal prison. If it's a serious felony, 10 years, criminal activity, 6 months. The penalty for a mayor who releases someone merely charged with a crime, 6 months in a federal prison. But then it gets worse. Senator Eric Schmidt has proposed the Protect America Act, which says that anyone who, quote, obstructs, impedes, inhibits, stymies, hinders, hampers, or interferes with an immigration officer with ICE faces 5 years in a federal prison. Wendy Lawrence points out this model has worked very well. Millions have passed through the gulag, right? They didn't need to kill everyone who came into the gulags. All they had to do was kill a few, like Alexei Navalny. And they didn't have to stop everyone from protesting. All they had to do was, send a couple hundred or a couple thousand people to the gulags, and everybody got it. This is dangerous stuff. And, the Department of Justice, as we speak, is criminally investigating Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, and Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis. And J.D. Vance said the quiet part out loud. He was on stage. And speaking of Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, J.D. Vance said, quote, those people are going to be sent to prison so long as we have the power to do so. Now, J.D. Vance is pretty much an open fascist. He's a big fan of Curtis Yarvin, him and Peter Thiel, his funder and sugar daddy. ICE has now purchased warehouses in 20 communities across 5 states in a $45 billion plan. They're building mega detention centers that'll hold 10,000 people. These are bigger than any of our federal prisons. These will be, outside of perhaps that region of China where basically everybody's in prison, these will be the largest prisons in the world. Now, why are we putting people in prison that we're supposed to be deporting? I think it's because they don't expect to just stop with undocumented people. In fact, my guess is when they start arresting people like you and me, people who protest, people who speak out against this administration, people who tell the truth, then they will start deporting the immigrants who are in these prison camps and replace them with people like us, if we can't stop them before it gets to that. And stopping them means speaking out, it means showing up, it means supporting the Democratic Party and Democrats right across the board, even if they're weak, even if they're corporate Democrats, even if they're corrupt. I don't care. They are not signed up for the, well, maybe the exception to this is probably John Fetterman, who says he's going to vote for the damn SAVE Act, right, for God's sake. But just criticizing ICE, or if your sheriff enforces the Fourth Amendment under Lindsay Graham's bill, 20, 25 years in prison. This is not the American way. These people are trying to turn us into a fundamentally different country, Eric Schmidt and Lindsey Graham. They want a fascist America, as far as I can tell. And frankly, I don't. I don't want a fascist America. I want an America that respects the rule of law, that respects the Constitution, that respects the First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendments, and Sixth, Seventh, and Eighth. Don't you?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
15 minutes past the hour. Back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a moment. Stay tuned. And welcome back. Joe in Seattle. Hey, Joe, what's on your mind today?
Oh, good morning, Tom. Hey, you know, there was a group of us last night that watched Trump's State of Delusion, and you were exactly right. I don't understand why the Democrats even showed up to it. They just got used as a whipping post.
They were props.
Right, exactly. And I just wanted to bring up, you're exactly right on these concentration camps. They're not meant for the people that they're putting in. It's meant for you and me. And if people don't put their foot down now and do something, we'll end up in them.
Yeah, I agree.
So what's your opinion on, you know, when we're watching Marco Rubio, when they panned to his face and Trump was introduced, you could see on his face a lot of doubt and a lot of hard feelings towards Trump. What do you think?
Well, Marco's in a tough position. He wants to be president so bad he can taste it. There's an active, one of the things Trump loves to do is what his father used to do to him and his siblings, particularly his brother Fred, is play them off each other, you know, pit them against each other and watch them fight. And so right now, apparently he is publicly, or not publicly, but, you know, within the White House in front of everybody, out loud musing about whether he should support in 2028, a J.D. Vance for president ticket with Marco Rubio as the VP, or a Marco Rubio for president ticket with J.D. Vance as the VP. And so you've got these guys at each other's throats right now, or at least looking over their shoulders. And so that's number one. Number two, Rubio is our principal diplomat. He's the Secretary of State. And if Trump attacks Iran, which I suspect Rubio does not want to have happen, then Rubio's job is going to get really, really difficult. So keep an eye on this one, Joe. I think you've identified a really, really important touchstone here. Thank you for the call. Jen in Lynchburg, Virginia. Hey, Jen, what's up?
Hi, Tom. How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you. What's up?
I was just calling last night. I was watching that ridiculous spectacle of Donald Trump and the people he was calling out. And yes, I like that state of delusion for sure. And I just wanted to chime in because the young lady, Sage, and her mother who were up there from Virginia, and I know that right now with Virginia going blue, Trump, is obviously trying to point out problems in Democratic states. But my daughter went to school with this girl, and I've known the family all growing up. Everything they said about her story was not true. She was not kidnapped by the state. She ran away. It was an unfortunate situation that she did end up being human trafficked because the person she trusted online, who she thought was a friend, they trafficked her, and she was missing, and it was tragic for her family. But none of it had to do with being kidnapped by the state. That never happened.
Wow.
So that was just another lie. So I thought I'd put it up there for the tally board.
Yeah. Well, thank you for setting the record straight, Jen. That's remarkable. Trump told all kinds of lies last night, so it shouldn't surprise us.
Yeah. For sure. But she is I'm so glad to see she is back home now, but that was not her story. So just setting the record straight.
Thanks, Jen. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. Recently, I did an op-ed and a little rant here about what happens when you raise the top income tax rate on morbidly rich people to 90%, and how, that helps reduce income inequality and funds the government, all kinds of good, positive things. What about corporate taxes? We really need to go back to the 50% top corporate income tax rate that we had under Dwight Eisenhower, for example. The reason why is not on the assumption that we're going to collect all that money, but what it does is it causes corporations to change their behavior, to do things to try to get tax deductions so they don't have to pay that in taxes. And what are the main things they do? They develop new products. They do research and development. They become more competitive. They open up new stores. They pay their employees better. They offer better benefits. All of these things are 100% tax deductible and thus lower their corporate income taxes and help out America. You can read all about it over at hartmanreport.com.
You can feel it in the air. Gold rooms and glass windows trembling. A storm is rising over the White House. Trump stands tall in a gilded room, lightning carving up the gloom, shadows crawling up the walls of gold, secrets bought and stories sold. Epstein's name like thunder rolls, echoes in forgotten files and empty holes. 3 million pages missing truth. A storm is coming for the roof. You can run from the headlines, hide behind the flame, but history remembers every name. This is the gathering storm, Watergate reborn, lightning at the window, the silence before the dawn. Trump hears the thunder roar, Epstein at the door. When the walls start shaking, the gold won't shield you anymore.
23 minutes past the hour. I've never met a finer man, said a Portland resident. Our town is in mourning right now. This is a story from the Oregonian, which is our statewide newspaper, by Tatum Tot. OregonLive.com is the website. You can find it. And it's about a fellow by the name of Martin San Pedro. Martin San Pedro came to the United States without documentation some 30 years ago. roughly. And he got married. He has a couple of children. He started a business. It's a handyman business. And he has built that business into a very real business. His kids are, adults now. And but he never applied for documentation. In fact, his son Eric said that Eric Martin, who's a recruiter for a property management company, said that his father was a very caring person who always put his kids first. He wouldn't even eat his dinner until all his kids had finished, just to make sure there was enough for them. He treated his customers as family. So what happened was this guy was snatched by ICE here in Portland, and they threw him into a detention center where, you sleep on a concrete floor, you don't have a blanket, he got pneumonia. And he was deathly sick. He's 54 years old, deathly sick. And so what did ICE do? They shipped him to Mexico and dumped him. Once he got to Mexico, he was in such bad shape, they put him in a hospital, and his pneumonia was so severe, it was just ravaging his lungs that he got in this ICE detention center, was so severe that they put him into a medically induced coma for almost a month. And then he died. He's dead. His family, his wife and children, all U.S. citizens. A guy who paid his taxes. He ran a licensed, insuranced company. He was right up front. He paid his taxes every year, the whole bit. And he wanted to apply for a green card, his son said, but he was afraid that if he did, he would get deported. And sure enough, he said, my dad was always caught in a catch-22. So here we go, again, right? What was it last week? It was a 7-year-old who got sick in ICE detention center and got dumped on the other side of the border with pneumonia. I mean, these people are just heartless. These ICE thugs, these Nazi Gestapo, they are just heartless. They're the worst of the worst is what is being recruited for this. I'm guessing they're recruiting from places like the Proud Boys. Because that's the kind of thing we're seeing. We're seeing violence, we're seeing hatred, we're seeing racism. Before Trump, ICE used to wear windbreakers that said ICE on them, and they used to treat people with respect, and they would show up and say, well, you've got to go. I mean, this happened, like I told you before, this happened to a friend of mine. So, you've got 30 days to get your affairs in order. We're keeping track of you. If you don't leave yourself, we will make you leave. But they did it with respect, and they didn't wear masks, and they didn't kid out like they were trying to invade or storm Fallujah. They didn't carry guns. They didn't kill people. And they didn't have a massive network of concentration camps across the United States that are killing people. So today, Portland is in shock and mourning the loss of one of our citizens, well, he's not a U.S. citizen, but certainly one of the people who lived here for decades, built a family, built a business, did what you're supposed to do, except for applying for his green card, which, by the way, is not a felony crime. It's a civil crime. It's not even a crime. It's a civil violation. It's a misdemeanor to be here without documentation. But for that, this guy is now dead. 27 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the place where despair is not an option. I'll be right back with your calls. What's on your mind? Stick around. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is by Brian J. Karam. It's titled Free the Press, The Death of American Journalism and How to Revive It. This is from the very last chapter, page 265. My father once told me that if you have a complaint, then you'd better have a solution. People bitch about everything, he routinely told me. They seem to like it more than solving problems. I've often thought about that as I spent a career covering the news. It is increasingly popular to merely ignore those things with which we don't agree and treat people the same way. That's hardly a solution. It only creates more problems. My pop also preached to me about adaptability, as did Alan, and that is a lesson I've tried to apply to every part of my life, to adapt. By the time Alan was preaching the same thing, it was a lesson I'd already learned, though it's still much appreciated. Today, the changing media landscape calls for adherence to some of our strictest tenets, while at the same time adapting to how we deliver the news to the public. Our democracy demands it. The local paper is perilously close to completely disappearing. Large swaths of this country live in news deserts. According to a study published by Axios in June 2021, the United States has lost some 37,000 newsroom jobs since 2016. And according to a study released on May 1st, 2021, by the University of North Carolina School of Media and Journalism, more than 1,300 communities across the United States have lost all news coverage. Among the findings in the study, about 20% of all metro and community newspapers in the United States, about 1,800, have gone out of business or merged since 2004, when about 9,000 were being published. Hundreds of more have scaled back coverage so much that they're becoming what researchers call ghost newspapers. Almost all of the newspapers still publishing have also scaled back, just less drastically. Online news sites, as well as some TV newsrooms and cable access channels, are working hard to keep local reporting alive, but these are taking root more slowly than newspapers are dying. Hence the 1,300 communities that have lost all local coverage. To adapt to this undeniable fact, we have to make newspapers more viable and easier to sustain. We cannot afford to let newsrooms disappear because they play a vital role in delivering information that the internet cannot reproduce. When you go to the internet, you're usually on a hard target searching for information. When you pick up a newspaper, you're scanning for information and are open to read anything presented to you. You may not know what to search for, but you know what you want to read when you find it. Newspapers are smorgasbords of information. The internet isn't and cannot be set up that way. So how do we save newspapers? There are a variety of business models currently under consideration. Nonprofits hold promise, but as of yet, we haven't gotten the needed solution or the needed traction. A big push was made to save the Baltimore Sun through a nonprofit, and this may indeed be the best way to save newspapers, since the job they do for society is completely incompatible with capitalism. Quote, "There's no question about it. I don't think any problem facing the country is more severe than what is facing our news information infrastructure," end quote, Michael Copps, formerly of the Federal Communications Commission, told me. Quote, "I saw it. First call I got was from the chairman when I joined the FCC was about the merger of Fox and Chris Kraft. That set the tone. I thought going to the FCC was the coolest job on earth. We'd be serving the public. And then I realized I spent a lot of time meeting with CEOs who wanted to seek approval of their mergers. The FCC more often than not approved the mergers. Then a rival would come in and gripe and say in order to compete, they had to have a merger too," end quote. The free market obviously isn't the answer. It only allows politics and information today to be played and reported on as sport. Walter Cronkite, Dan Rather, and others saw it coming. This is a very steep mountain to climb, and there is no commercial solution to the problem. The corporate consolidation, as Copps told me, is too embedded in the system. How do you get beyond that? The government has to exercise its antitrust laws, and we need to think about public media. Put the brakes on corporate mergers. Subsidies are the key, Victor Picard, the University of Pennsylvania communications professor, explained to me. He works at the intersections of U.S. and global media activities and politics, the history and political economy of media institutions, and the normative foundations of media policy. Quote, "It's the commercialization, the dedication to clickbait, and profits above all else. That's what's driving this. There's no commercial incentive to do it right. Journalism often isn't sexy," end quote, he said. While there isn't one perfect model, Picard said he could see subsidized subscribers or a voucher plan. Everybody gets a $100 voucher and they can buy media of their choice. It guarantees a certain method of support. Subsidize the news outlets themselves. My preference is to radically expand and reform our public broadcast system so that they can actually be politically independent, end quote. Pickard also supports public media centers in every city across the country, public libraries, schools, and journalism schools. That's my radical plan. It's healthy to have a mixed system, independents, nonprofits, public benefit corporations, and standards for for-profit companies. The driving force today in journalism is capitalism, and it's driving our journalism into the ground. The book is Free the Press, The Death of American Journalism and How to Revive It. To change it so that women can't vote. They wanted to do away with the election of senators, repeal the 17th Amendment, take us back to them being appointed by the states. They had all these weird, they wanted to outlaw labor unions, all these weird ideas, but they've stopped talking about it. I mean, they're still moving forward on it, but it's not. Project 2025, for example, their ultimate talking document, does not have one single mention in it about a constitutional convention. Why would that be? Well, it's because the Supreme Court is doing their work for them. I mean, they have overturned Article 2. They've overturned the 1st, 4th, 9th, and 14th Amendments. They've overturned Article 1, Section 7. All the details of this whole thing are over at HartmannReport.com. You got to check it out. Welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Gar in Atlanta. Hey, Gar, what's on your mind today?
How you doing today, Tom?
Good. How about you?
That's good. Some things really blow my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Last night, Trump talked about standing up for Americans, but he's suing American taxpayers for $10 billion, like he care about Americans.
Right.
And J.D. Vance called him a bad guy and America's Hitler.
Yeah.
Democrats are silent on that.
Yeah.
Some things don't make sense. Your guy, Greg Palast, got it best. We got the best democracy money can buy.
Yep.
These politicians are playing us like a drum.
Yep. Thanks to 5 corrupt Republicans on the Supreme Court.
They're not talking about J.D. Vance calling him America's Hitler and a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
And J.D. Vance's boss, Peter Thiel, said capitalism is more important than democracy. We talked about that. And Democrats are silent. Like Greg Palast, he got it best. He got the best democracy money can buy. I think probably the poorest congressman is worth about $1 million. It's just unbelievable. You can't make this stuff up.
Yep.
He's suing he said that the IRS, with tax season, the IRS exposes taxes. He's the one that said he don't pay taxes because he's smart.
Yeah.
Didn't he say that?
No, he's whining about it. No, you're right on all those points, Gar. The guy is a hypocrite. He's a thief. He's a con man. He's a rapist.
That's not my problem. Democrats are calling him on the carpet.
I know. We need some Democrats are, Gar. The good news is that there are some Democrats who are calling him out. It's just not enough.
J.D. Vance called him a bad guy, and America's Hitler, and Democrats. I ain't heard one Democrat repeat that.
Yeah. Well, I have, but but your point is well taken. Democrats need to, they need to pick up their game. I'm with you, Gar. Thank you. Kenyatta in Los Angeles. Hey, Kenyatta, what's on your mind? I haven't gotten your newsletter in a while. Are you still writing it? Kenyatta? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Yes.
Okay. I have, as you know, my mother is expiring and she has dementia.
Oh my!
And you've dealt with that in your family.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
I want to talk about but no, I'm back at the writing desk and I've got a lot to say, and I wanted to talk about last night's Klan rally real quick.
That's really what it was, wasn't it? So, especially when he went off on the Somalis. That was just nuts.
Oh, it's absolutely what it was. But, this 105 minutes this 105-minute diatribe, I kind of broke it down into 4 quarters, roughly 26 minutes apiece. And the first 26 minutes, I said to myself, I just can't sit through this. I mean, it was literally vomitous. Mm-hmm. But being a person, as you know, interested in international relations and geopolitics, I wanted to hear what he had to say about Iran. And apparently his speechwriters must have known people were waiting for that, because he didn't do it until the 4th quarter, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So the 2nd quarter, the second 26 minutes, at some point, the camera pans to him at the podium, and you've got J.D. Vance, who looks like he's always smelling something foul to me. I don't know why I get that impression with it. And MAGA Mike. Mm-hmm. And then I went from it being vomitous to thinking I was looking at a Beavis and Butthead episode plus one. It became amusing. Okay. Then we get to the third 26 minutes, and then it became burlesque. And let me tell you why. At some point in that 3rd quarter, he points to Melania. She stands up, and I'm not one to make, insult people's physical appearances, but she has a very strange look. I mean, these seemingly lips that are outsized for the rest of her countenance. I don't know. And then it became burlesque. So I'm still waiting to hear about Iran, because he's got me hooked now. So I get to the 4th quarter, and finally he says something about Iran, but nothing about Iran.
Yeah.
And my dad used to tell me all the time, listen very carefully to what a man says, but listen more carefully to what he doesn't say.
Exactly.
I have to, and let me just say this, Tom, in that Klan rally of a speech, he said something that me living in Los Angeles, I found very ominous. He said, Los Angeles will be safe for the 2028 Olympics, just like D.C. Now, listen to this. If he loses the midterms, which is very likely, 2028 is going to be a general election year. What better way for him to claw back power than to have stormtroopers in Los Angeles? And he's going to do it. Mm-hmm. He's going to do this.
Oh, he's already had his rehearsal.
Yeah. Lastly, if I've got a few seconds, I just wanted to, and Morris, you know I love you. I got a chance to meet Morris when you were in town, Tom, late last year.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
But I want to tell Morris, I absolutely disagree with him. Trump is backed into a corner. He has to attack Iran now, not only because of the Israeli lobby, but he's in a geopolitical corner because China and Russia are helping Iran build an electronic warfare and not anti-aircraft, but missile defense system that is state of the art.
Yeah.
If that gets deployed, Iran can never be touched again. So the window to attack them is very narrow. Also, back to the midterms, if Trump loses the midterms, which is possible, if not likely, if he doesn't, pollute it with shenanigans, the rest of his presidency is basically moot because he's going to be facing impeachments the whole next 24 months.
Sure.
So he's not done. So this is, and lastly, that many assets, you spoke about it at the beginning of the show, the armada, quote unquote, that he has out there. I mean, that's a massive naval buildup.
Yeah.
That is costing, I don't know how many millions of dollars a day.
Billions.
There's no way he can back away from that.
We'll see. I tend to agree more with your analysis than Morris's. I just, on the one hand, if he does attack Iran, if he does a perfunctory attack like he did before, like, just take out one nuclear facility or kill off a bunch of, people high up in the regime, with targeted, I think that's probably going to be his safest course of action. It's not going to cause Congress to freak out. It's not going to produce a huge backlash or a retaliatory response. But if he goes any bigger than that, it's going to be very, very problematic. And he's already talking about, a small strike, and then if they don't come along, followed by a large strike. So, I don't know.
Well, yeah, but no. According to last year, the Iranian nuclear program was obliterated. So why? Listen,
I know. He quoted himself last night about that.
And what the fear is Iran's missile program, ballistic missile program. It is state of the art.
Yeah. And their drones.
And
I mean, they're developing drones that are really challenging Ukraine right now. You know.
Absolutely, sir. Listen, good to talk to you, Tom, and thanks you and all of your listeners for the support over at Substack. But I've really been going through it recently. But I promise you, lots of work product.
Good. You can subscribe to that for free over at Substack.com. Just plug in Kenyatta. It'll pop right up. Kenyatta, thank you. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Exposing the con in conservative. I'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back. Holly in Washington, D.C. Hey, Holly, what's on your mind today?
Well, I was in the room at the swamp, State of the Swamp.
Oh, cool.
And I wanted to,
it was in your town, wasn't it?
Yeah. And kudos to Miles Taylor for pulling that all together. I mean, he's quite a dynamo for a security analyst.
He is, and he's a young guy, and he's building something here. He's keep an eye on this guy. He's going places.
Super charismatic.
Yeah.
And sincere. But in the room, it was electric. I mean, there were frogs everywhere. People were dressed up in all green. There were frog pins and frog hats, and he supplied a bunch
frogs
of stuff.
came, which is very cool.
Oh, yeah. And one of the House reps, I think that represents Portland, spoke. It was a woman, and I don't remember her name.
Yeah.
But the energy in the group was just amazing. I mean, it was like rock and roll concert energy.
Yeah.
People were hooting and hollering and standing up and standing ovations. And the speakers were, I would call them animated, but it wasn't performative. But they didn't have any concerns about regulation in that environment. And then the brilliance of the speakers and the intensity was just palpable.
Yeah.
It was just an amazing event. And it felt all together. You know, it just felt like we were like one movement towards some kind of salvation for this country. It was so enlivening.
Yeah, there is a movement going on. Well, Holly, thank you for the report. You're the first person I've
and
heard
that
who
was Chicago mayor. Yeah, that
Jacob
was
Fry.
Chicago mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
That's Minneapolis. Chicago was Brendan something.
Johnson, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Thank you for taking the call.
Sure enough. Thank you for the report, Holly. David in North Miami Beach, Florida. Hey, David, what's up?
Howdy. Welcome to where we have no beach. Yes. I want to describe what we saw as the last of the toxic baby boomers. Our century started with W, and we almost got Romney. Of course, none of which technically drink, but of course they're all addicted to money, power, and various forms of abuse. And this fantasy world where smart weapons matter more than educated people. And I want to remind your listeners, way back February 4, 2015, all these people of a certain generation, they had a common enemy. David Dayen claimed that Paul Singer, the vulture, was considered, enemies of all of them, of Bernie and Hillary and Obama and Trump.
Oh, he's not the only billionaire who hates them all.
Right, but the point is, has Singer finally backed Trump and his bad habits, or is he just
I don't know. I'm not a Paul Singer watcher. You'd have to ask Greg Palast.
Fine.
I wrote a book about him, Vulture's Picnic, I think it was called.
Fair enough. The larger point being that, it's a simplistic view by people who've been part of the rest and platter.
I get it. David, I'm sorry I'm out of time. Thank you for the call. It's 48 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Did you know that the ancient Roman Republic, which for 480 years was actually a democratic republic before Julius Caesar kind of ended the democracy phase and replaced it with the autocracy phase, that they were brought down by a very small group of very rich people. The richest man in ancient Rome was Marcus Licinius Crassus. He was the richest guy, the billionaire of Rome. And he frankly hated the Roman free bread for all welfare system. It was being paid for with his tax dollars, after all. So him and Pompey the Great and a few other rich guys got together, and they basically crashed Rome. They turned it into an oligarchy and then into a tyranny. And the parallels to what Trump is doing right now are absolutely shocking. There's an article about it over at HartmannReport.com titled American Caesar, Trump's Path to Power Mirrors Rome's Darkest Days. Check it out.
Back in the day.
Welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour. Picking up your calls here. Bob in Melbourne, Florida. Hey, Bob, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, a little bit ago you were talking about how Republicans that donate tons of money to Republican causes, and then they wind up getting contracts for government services, and so then they pad the bill, and then they take all the money and they give it back to Republicans that. And it's a vicious cycle, right? Yeah. Well, down here in Florida, I just thought you'd like to know that, Alligator Alcatraz, and this is all over the Miami Herald and the Tampa Bay Times, that Alligator Alcatraz, they let a contract for $92 million for porta potties.
Whoa.
Porta potties.
How do you buy $92 million worth of porta potties? That would be enough to populate an entire state, wouldn't it? I mean,
they said for that kind of money, they could put in flush toilets and a whole, sewer system and on and on and on. $92 million.
Well, plus the porta potties require maintenance.
Potties.
I mean, it's like subscribing to a piece of software instead of buying it. It's you have to make a payment every year.
Well, let me tell you what. That's a lot of poop.
It is. Yeah, it really is. Bob,
anyway, keep your eye on it. $92 million for porta potties at Alligator Alcatraz.
Okay, Bob. Thanks a lot for listening to WMNF. Yeah, good talking to you. Marty in Wixom, Michigan. Hey, Marty, thanks for listening on Sirius XM. What's on your mind today?
Well, I just wanted to agree with you that the Democrats got badly used by Trump at the State of the Union event last night.
And they should have seen it coming.
Yep. I painfully watched the whole speech, and I was literally screaming at the television as time after time Trump would spout some ridiculous lie and attack the Dems, and the screen would pan to show the Dems, like Minority Leader Jeffries, just sitting there passively and looking uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were a viewer who didn't know better, you'd think Trump was telling the truth, and the Dems just sat there looking guilty.
Yep.
And I think
I would have given him the finger, frankly. I mean,
yeah, really. I mean, I think that pitiful performance leads directly to the bad polling results we see for the Democratic Party.
I agree.
The public has terrible ratings of Trump and the Republicans because they have terrible policies and are corrupt.
I agree.
But the public has bad ratings of the Democrats, not because they oppose the Democrats' policies, but because the Democrats seem totally weak and ineffective at stopping Trump and the Republicans.
Yep.
So I actually
well
have a
said,
suggestion
Marty.
for the next one of these.
Mm-hmm.
I have a suggestion for the next one of these events. Knowing that the media will cut to them to show their reaction, why not have the Democrats who do attend do something to send a message of their own? For example, you could hold up little lies signs, or you could make a visible L with your fingers. Then maybe have someone in the whiteboard titled lies and make a check mark on the board every time Trump spouts a lie.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That
You
would
could just
not
have a
only
big piece
show
of
Democrats
cardboard that
having
says
some spunk.
lies, and you know, you put a little X mark or a little, you know, how you do
Right.
4 slashes and then a 5th one with a line through it. Yeah, that's a great idea, Marty.
Exactly.
That's a great idea.
That would not only show Democrats have some spunk, it would at minimum cast immediate doubt on Trump's claims, and it would flag certain Trump comments for later fact-checking.
Yeah, because they looked like, you know, in a court of law, you know, when the prosecutor's up going, and he did this, and he did this, and the guy's sitting there at the, you know, the guilty guy is sitting there at the table pretending that he's not guilty. Yeah, I get it. Marty, Thank you. Well said. Regina in Chicago. Hey, Regina, what's on your mind today?
I wanted to remind you and the listeners, I watched that debacle last night, and can you hear me good? Because I'm
just
on
fine,
speakerphone.
Regina.
I'm in my car.
Yep.
Okay. Trump was doing what he does, creating a show, but he was doing what Biden did to them. As soon as he had that thing about we have to do, everybody stand up, it hit me. I think it might have been Biden's last speech. You know, don't you remember when?
You talking about when he said they're going to take your Social Security?
Whatever, I can't remember what it was, but he made the Republicans sit there and look like fools.
Yep.
And whoever is guiding him, they don't forget anything.
Yeah.
Okay. The symbol of them being the elephant is not lost. Okay.
Yeah.
They remember every little thing, every little tit for tat, all this. Can I say BS?
Yes, you can. Yeah, you just don't say the whole word.
No, yeah, right. So you know, we gotta wake up and get with these guys. You know, because like for them to do that, the stand up thing, and what your other caller just said about the Republicans, the Democrats, all of them should have went there, and you create a spectacle. They could have all come in with certain T-shirts and got in there and took their jackets off. It was all kind of ways to, make them look stupid.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you.
Have your wife make a limerick, and they could have started singing in the chamber.
There you go. Thank you, Regina.
That would have been a hoot, boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I actually, it just occurred to me, they really had a choice. They could have done political theater, like you're talking about, and they did that a couple of years ago with the paddles. Remember, they smuggled those paddles in that had words on them.
Yes.
And Al Green did last night with his sign that said, black people are not apes. But they could have done something like that, or they could have just not shown up. And either one of those things, in my mind, would be preferable to just sitting there. But on the other hand, I do recognize that.
No, you're right. They couldn't have thrown everybody out. So doing something in a big group would have been better.
Yeah, I'm with you. Regina, thank you. Thank you for the call. On the other side of the break, the Supreme Court just made it easier to steal your ballot or to just get it to the polling place so late that it doesn't get counted. I'll tell you about that right after the break. Stay with us, and we'll continue to pick up your calls.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
Our book today is Future War, Preparing for the New Global Battlefield by Robert, I believe it's pronounced Latif, L-A-T-I-F-F. This is from the introduction. On a sweltering August day following weeks of heightened tension with Russia over its actions in Ukraine and Syria, and harsh words between the United States and China over actions in the South China Sea, and as workers are preparing to depart the cool of their air-conditioned Manhattan office buildings for the gridlocked highways and subways, several large electric power plants along the East Coast simultaneously experienced dramatic overspeed conditions in their large turbine generators. Plant operators are unable to stop the steam turbines, whose automatic control and data systems have been infected by sophisticated computer malware, and they catastrophically tear themselves apart, cutting power to large segments of the population and industries in the Northeast. Building systems shut down, hospitals switch to emergency generators, trains stop running, traffic lights cease operating, and Wall Street trading comes to a halt. At the same time, 1,100 miles to the south, a massive rocket sits fueled and ready to launch a critical national security satellite when an explosive-laden private aircraft flies at low altitude into the Cape Canaveral launch pad area and, despite repeated warnings, slams into the pressurized fuel tank and solid rocket motors, creating an enormous conflagration. Half a world away, elite commandos equipped with the latest high-technology equipment but unidentifiable as a national army attack U.S. and allied interests near areas of disputed territory. Thus are fired the opening shots of a new war. These hypothetical events represent a radically different style of conflict fought with new tools and against new and unfamiliar enemies. When most people think of war, they imagine soldiers doing battle with other soldiers, employing tanks, artillery, and other recognizable weapons. However, in this century, war has morphed into something we can scarcely recognize, and future conflicts will be qualitatively and quantitatively unlike those of the past. It will be fought using innovative and unusual weapons, many of which, because the technologies have both civilian and military uses, will be available to far more people who are far less skilled in their employment. The so-called democratization of technology has diminished the monopoly of advanced countries on the tools of war. 21st century armed conflicts often have no battlefield in the traditional sense. The concept of opposing armies clashing in deadly struggle but moderated by international conventions of behavior seems a thing of the past. In 1999, Chinese colonels Kuo Liang and Wang Shuangshui predicted that soldiers would increasingly be computer hackers, financiers, drug smugglers, and agents of private corporations rather than members of a military, and that their weapons would include not only airplanes, cannons, poison gas bombs, and biochemical agents, but also computer viruses, net browsers, and financial derivative tools. Their predictions were prescient. Yesterday's wars were, like World War II, about saving civilized nations from maniacal dictators, or like the conflicts in Vietnam and Korea, devoted to a clash of ideologies in the attempt to limit the spread of one hegemon over another. They were big affairs involving large military forces and enormous violence. Today's wars are more about cultural and religious hatreds, using violence as a means to change the hearts and minds of people, among whom the killing occurs with more frequency. Tomorrow's wars will be different still, fought largely for political dominance with stealth and cunning, targeting innocents and institutions, heavily dependent on information superiority, and employing strange new weapons. While we have a highly motivated and well-trained and equipped armed forces that will adapt, we are not prepared as a nation to react well to the inevitably messy and ambiguous situations these new conflicts and weapons will present. We still have no clear idea of what constitutes an act of war in cyberspace now, nor of how we might respond to such an act. It is not enough for the military to be prepared. Neither the public nor its decision makers have yet fully comprehended the significance of the changes in the types of conflict and the tools with which they will be fought. Without question, there will be circumstances when decision makers will find it necessary, or at least think it necessary, to send soldiers into classic boots-on-the-ground combat situations. We will continue to project force with our powerful aircraft, our munitions, and our aircraft carrier strike groups. When war is fought in foreign lands, it could well be against other high-tech armies. However, war will increasingly be more personal and often fought closer to home. It will not lend itself to the traditional massive displays of U.S. firepower. It will affect individuals directly, not as some distant conflict we read about in newspapers or watch in the movies or on the internet. Americans will be targeted on U.S. soil, often, as we have seen in San Bernardino and Orlando, by homegrown terrorists. This form of war will be messy and complex, and it will not lend itself to easy, quick, soundbite solutions. It may not even be clear for a while who perpetrated the violence against us. Was it state-sponsored or a random act of terror? Will we unleash massive destruction on foreign countries in retaliation for attacks by terrorists residing on our own soil? If so, to what end and with what consequences? There are always consequences, whether they be the death or capture of our own troops, unnecessary civilian casualties, or the incitement of more violence. The book Future War by Robert Latif.
We say fight back!
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the third hour of the program. So last night in the State of the Delusion speech, Trump went off on a rant about how he wants to end all mail-in voting. 5 states, including one Republican state, Utah, do nothing but mail-in voting, and multiple other states are now largely mail-in voting or substantially mail-in voting because it's a better way to vote. I mean, you know, large chunks of Europe are mail-in voting too. The reason why it's a better way to vote, and I'm telling you this from personal experience, I've lived in Oregon now on and off for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And, you know, we only vote by mail here in Oregon. Unless you're handicapped, you know, and you need to show up physically someplace, that's it. And it's super convenient. I mean, you know, Louise and I, we get our ballot in the mail. First of all, they send out it's like, you know, the old TV guide things, or, you know, it's this little booklet that's got all the candidates. The candidate gets to write a little riff about themselves, and the state, you know, verifies if it's truthful or not, and you know, everything about the ballot initiatives and the judges, and, you know, all the information is there. You know, pretty anodyne. I mean, it's all kind of right down the middle. But, you know, we sit down with the ballot and we're like, you know, well, who's this judge? I never heard of this guy. And so you Google him, right? Or you go to the local, you know, Willamette Week is our local weekly kind of entertainment paper, but they do just a great job with every election, you know, endorsing and explaining and describing candidates. And so we end up voting in a way that is educated. I mean, for most of my life, I've been voting since I was, I don't recall if I was 18 when they legalized the 18-year-old vote or if I was 21 when I first voted, but I voted in every election I could. And every time I vote, I'm taking guesses. You know, if you're in the booth and there's like, who's this guy who's running for drain commissioner? You know, who are these 3 people who want to be sheriff? What's this guy who wants to be the, you know, the dog catcher? You know, you just, oh, well, he's got a nice name. You know? Or I think I'll vote for the woman this time. I mean, that's no way to vote, right? If you're voting by mail, you can sit at your dining room table and you can pull this stuff up online and you can look at these people's history and you can read their, Wikipedia pages or their campaign pages. You can look at the discussions about them and you can be an informed voter. Voting by mail is the best way to do it. Take it from me. I've been doing it now for a couple of decades and it's just wonderful, which of course is why Trump doesn't like it. It's convenient. This is Paul Weyrick's 1980 speech in that Dallas, Texas church, where he said, "How many of our Christians are goo-goo, they're good government people?" He says they want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Our leverage in the elections candidly goes up as the election populace goes down. I mean, that was the co-founder of the Heritage Foundation, right? A major Republican strategist, Paul Weyrick. He's passed away now. And they've been practicing that ever since 1980. They want to reduce the number of people voting because when the number of people voting goes up, Democrats do really well. It's just that simple. So Trump can't outlaw mail-in voting. He's not going to be able to do that. I get it that the SAVE Act does that to some extent, maybe to a large extent, frankly, because there's this new Save America Act, which is the new and improved version, as well as disenfranchising tens of millions of American women who've changed their names when they got married. And certainly any trans person who changed their names. But all of that is nothing compared to whether your mail-in ballot even makes it to be counted. Right? This is what Louis DeJoy was doing in the 2020 election. When he ripped up over 100 high-speed voting machines worth millions of dollars each to slow down the mail. And by the way, it worked. There were close to 1 million ballots. Greg Palast documented this. Close to 1 million ballots that showed up so late that they couldn't be counted. And the majority of them would have been Democratic voters ballots. Well, Joe Biden won anyway. But that was Louis DeJoy's little gift to Donald Trump when he was running the post office. He got called out on it. He got busted for it. Now the post office is like, well, no, we'll get. So here's where it gets weird. This case went to the U.S. Supreme Court. And it was the U.S. Supreme Court versus Coben, I think was the title, or Conan, rather. And it was a woman by the name of Labine Conan, who is a landlord in Euless, Texas, E-U-L-E-S-S, Texas. And she's a black woman who owns some houses that she was renting out, or perhaps it's an apartment building. I don't know. It doesn't specify, but she's a landlord. And the local mailman, for 2 years, the local mailman refused to deliver mail to her apartment building or to her tenants, homes or apartments, whatever they were. Increasingly, I'm assuming it was an apartment. Because they were white people who had a black landlord. And the mailman was offended by that. So the mailman just, for 2 years, refused to deliver mail because she was black. And in a 5-4 decision yesterday, all 5 Republican appointees won the day. The Supreme Court said, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. And you can't sue the post office for messing with your ballots or messing with your mail. Which means that the post office now has absolutely nothing holding it back from saying, oh, you've got a lot of mail-in ballots coming out of Cleveland, and this race with Sherrod Brown in it is going to be really tight. Cleveland has got a lot of black people, a lot of Democrats, a lot of ballots coming out of Cincinnati, a lot of ballots coming out of Columbus. Let's just slow the mail down in those cities so that those ballots arrive after the election instead of before. And according to the Supreme Court now, there is nothing you can do. And who's running the Supreme Court? A Trump ally. Excuse me, who's running the post office? A Trump ally. This is a structural weakening of the guardrails that protect our ballot. In a country where, a quarter, a third, I don't know what the percentage is now, but it's substantial, of the people in the United States now prefer to do mail-in voting for the reason that I just laid out. It's more convenient, it's more comfortable. You don't have to stand in line with a whole bunch of people who might be coughing, you know. If you're black, you don't have to stand in line for 9 hours. Because, you know, in Georgia and these other red states, they love to do that to black people in blue cities. Oh, I'm sorry, we just don't have enough voting machines, and the ones that we did give you are broken. It's just a mystery. Why is it that every year, you know, black people have to wait in line 8, 9 hours? I don't know why. It must be a force of nature or something. Yeah, right. How do you get around that? Vote by mail. And that's what Trump is trying to do away with. This is just so wrong. It's just so shockingly wrong. This should not be happening in the United States. And these 5 Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court who voted this way, Neil Gorsuch was the only one who didn't, are just, I'm starting to sound like Donald Trump here, disgusting. I mean, it was a pathetic failure to stand up for the rights of Americans. Probably because she was a black landlord, right? We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Or maybe, probably, because they saw there's an election coming in a few months. What say you? I'll pick up your calls right after this. And welcome back. Carol in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Hey, Carol, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good to talk to you again, Tom. Tom, I have 2 quick things to say, and then I have a really good inspirational rant. Okay, so just bear with me. Okay, you were just talking about the post office, and I happen to hear it. I'm just saying this right now so everybody can hear this. There's a new little goofball thing that they've did at the post office, which is when you think when you walk into the post office, you are going to get it stamped for that day. That's not the case. You have to verbally say now, I want this postmark for today.
That's correct.
Now, in light of what Tom just said, listen to this, people. Okay, not only do you get the postmark for that day, this is really with regards to your mail-in ballot or your ballot if you take it to the post office. Demand that and watch them, mark it, and then ask, and you take a quick snapshot of that date in your ballot with your phone. Because if anything goes wrong and that ballot's not counted, it is supposed to be counted if it's postmarked that day during the election period. So we have accountability. People, do not despair. Remember, you have to verbally say it, and then I would suggest you take a snapshot of your ballot with that postmark on. We're not putting up with this. That's the first thing, Tom. Sorry. And then the other thing I wanted to say, Tom, you might not know this, is yesterday was the oversight meeting with Senator Blumenthal, who specifically talked to a ICE whistleblower. He was a trainer. And none of the people out on doing ICE work have been trained one whit on the Constitution.
Yep.
The whistleblower said
they abandoned that.
Yeah, and it was half of the hours. There's twice as many hours they should have been taught, and they're not taught. Half of the training program. And on guns, what to do, barely touched upon what they're supposed to do with. And the whistleblower spent a whole lot of time talking about breaking an entry and the violation of that law because, again, it's the Fourth Amendment. They weren't taught.
No, he said that the ICE officers are literally being trained to violate the Constitution. You're absolutely right, Carol. Now, Carol, it says here that when you talked to Mateo, you told him that you wanted to support the Democrats who showed up at the State of the Union. Is that the case?
That's my rant, yes. And I'm getting right to it, and it's based on what you said. And I grieve for your Oregonian that died from pneumonia. I grieve for that because that leads right into my rant, okay? We have already run out of illegal aliens, Tom, in the detentions. The detention centers right now only have this is from Aaron Parnell. 14% in the detention centers are the illegal aliens. The rest are citizens. Right now, they are detaining citizens that are here legally. So people need to know that. We need to open those doors and let those people out.
Yeah.
We must stop.
I understand that there have been a few over 100 American citizens who have been detained. I don't know of any who have been in long-term. Well, there was one guy who was in for 9 months, but
More than
I think it's the exception rather than the rule. But it's an exception that should simply never happen if there was due process.
absolutely, and there's way more than that. But anyway, I just wanted to tell everybody the ICE people, detention centers, and SAVE Act are all related.
Yeah.
They're all related. It's the same goal, to suppress and depress and intimidate the fear for the midterms coming up. He's rigging it right now. They must all not fall.
Well said. Thank you. 19 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in just 1 minute. Stay with us. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. They called it blood libel, what the Germans were doing against the Jews, claiming that they were using the blood of Christian children to make their matzah. We've got a new blood libel now here in the United States. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump lying through their teeth, arguing that black Haitian immigrants to the United States, legal immigrants with green cards in this little town in Ohio, are eating pets. This is another libel that goes way back. In the 1890s, people were claiming German and Dutch immigrants were eating pets. Then they claimed in the 1880s, and actually as recently as last year, a restaurant got shut down in California because of claims that they were serving pets. They weren't. But it was an Asian restaurant. This is just evil stuff, these lies and spreading this kind of hate. And this is now the strategy that the Republicans are using. There's a whole article about it at HartmannReport.com, Hate as a Political Weapon. Check it out.
Under Trump's rule, obedience is law. And defiance is treated like a crime. But the heartbeat of a nation won't be broken. We've stood up every single time.
Minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls. Here's Ziggy in Oneonta, New York. Hey, Ziggy, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I boycotted the last night's State of Shock, but I did see some of the outtakes earlier today. And something that Kenyatta said triggered me to call you, and it has to do with his portion about Iran. And I noticed what I think is a Freudian slip by Trump, and where he, I think he meant to say, or was supposed to say, that unless Iran makes a sacred promise not to have nuclear weapons, then nothing will happen.
But he used the word secret.
Yes, exactly.
I caught that
he
too.
used the word secret.
Yeah.
Which made me think that what he's really trying to do is come up with some sort of secret deal. And what it is, I don't know, but I think it was a slip on his part.
I think his contact lenses just weren't working well with the prompter, but, he's just not that good at reading. I think you may be reading more into it than this there, but, who knows?
I could be. It's just a small point that when I heard Kenyatta, I thought I'd mention that point. That's all.
That's a good one, Z.
All right.
Are you doing okay in your recovery from your surgery?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing wonderful. Everything's going good.
Great. Okay.
And I'm feeling great and losing weight and continuing to go on,
There you go. Good on you, Ziggy.
All right.
Okay, thanks a lot for the call.
Take care.
Stay healthy.
All right.
James in Federal Way, Washington. Hey, James, what's up?
Oh, hi, Tom. Long time. I'm calling about the Medals of Honor that were given away last night.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, I'm not questioning the servicemen's contributions. I'm questioning whether or not either of those medals were approved by Congress.
Yeah, I thought the Congressional Medal of Honor was given by Congress, not the president. What am I missing?
Well, it's a good showtime. It's a great showtime. This is a showtime, so
I get that. But
so either one of those medals are being valid if they haven't been.
Well, it's the Republicans control the House and Senate, so if there is a legal issue around that, I'm guessing that that's something that will pass very quickly.
Well, sure, but I hope I made my point.
You did, yeah. If anybody knows, I would like to know what are the predicates for receiving the Congressional Medal of Honor. It says congressional, doesn't it have to go through Congress? There's also, there are presidential awards that he can pass out too.
Believe me, I'm an expert on this. Many of my friends have very high medals, and even that one. And I'm hurt by this, and I'm sure if this was done improperly just for show, and I know it would be done just for show.
I think it was done as Trump's way of saying that screw Congress, I don't need them. I mean, he said this a couple of weeks ago. He said Congress doesn't have to come back into session for the next 3 years. I got everything I need.
Well, good point, Tom.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, James. Thanks a lot for the information. Mark in Portland. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Hey, Tom. So I think that the Dems made a critical error yesterday by all showing up. I mean, if half the chamber is empty because Democrats refuse to sit there and take his lies and abuse, he's going to feel that mentally and even probably lash out even more. But the visual is that half the chamber is empty.
Yeah.
And then
although the Republicans would have scattered themselves randomly enough that it wouldn't look that way. They just put a foot and a half of space between each person rather than sitting next to each other. But I get your point, Mark.
I mean, it would just show solidarity that Dems will not sit, because sit and take this abuse. And it also gets into his head. It also inflames his insecurity about not being liked by everybody. And that's what, that's what this is all about. He needs to be liked by everybody, but he's doing things that are so divisive, he's hated by most of the people.
Yeah. And he knows it.
My thought is that they by showing up, I think they look bad. I just think it just, I didn't watch it at all. I just saw highlight or low lights on.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing, and it was a disaster. He used them as props, and they went along with it, and they should have been ready for it, and they should have either, if they're going to show up, engage in political theater, but otherwise, and I'm with you, Mark, I don't think they should. Over 50 of the progressives just didn't even bother showing up, and good on them. But
and one more thing. So I think Trump wants to probably bring in some more states, like the state of chaos, the state of hostility. He wants more electors. So state of paranoia. So he's probably working on that in his own little theater of his head. So we'll see.
Him and Stephen Miller have got those things. I mean, they're as rapidly as they can, they're turning this country into a Nazi state. And I don't use that word reservedly. I'm very intentional. These guys are following the Nazi playbook. They haven't set up the death camps yet, but every other step, go after the trans people, go after the queer people, go after the minorities, go after the immigrants, go after people with brown skin, go after and trash the Jews. I mean, they're doing the whole thing. Mark, I got to run, but thanks for the call. Spot on. It's 27 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your thoughts on the other side of the break here. So stick around. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, the place where we ask, is Walmart a person? We say no. The 5 corrupt Republicans on the Supreme Court got that one wrong, too. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's your media support group for We the People. We'll be right back. Today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is The Decadent Society, How We Became the Victims of Our Own Success by Russ Douthat, a New York Times columnist. And this is from, it's about the middle of his first chapter. This is a subchapter titled The Limits of Neoliberalism. There's no shortage of theories to explain this great stagnation, to borrow a phrase from one of the theorizers, the George Mason University economist Tyler Cowen. And there's also no need to simply choose between them. Like most broad trends, the economic decadence of the developed world is overdetermined, and almost every serious attempt at explanation will contain some element of truth. The most politically appealing theories, the ones animating our populist and socialist insurgencies, tend to blame neoliberalism itself, claiming that the medicine for 1970s stagflation has proven to be poisonous in large doses. The push for ever freer trade has hollowed out Western economies, the argument goes, offshoring productive industries and killing decent jobs, making financiers and knowledge workers rich while the middle class shrinks steadily. Meanwhile, low tax rates intended to spur investment have enabled the rich to keep more of their gains while starving the programs required to protect the poor and boost the working classes. Antitrust policy has become so fixated on the so-called benefits of consolidation, lower prices for consumers, that it has ignored all the ways that market-dominant corporations can warp policies and strangle innovation. And anti-inflationary policies, forged to counteract a crisis that's now generations behind us, have been adopted as a dogma that's now by the West's financial and political elite, which demands fiscal austerity under every circumstance and deprives struggling economies of the cash they need to grow. You don't have to accept every aspect of this argument, and indeed the populists of the left and right disagree about which aspects to stress, to see that it describes a real phenomenon, perhaps not the outright failure of neoliberalism, but diminishing returns from some of its preferred policies, and an overconfidence among the Western leadership class that solutions from the 1970s are permanently applicable. On trade, for instance, the general principle that open markets have more winners than losers led policymakers to assume that this would necessarily happen and to overestimate how quickly communities affected by outsourcing would recover and how swiftly other sectors of the economy could compensate. In particular, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology economist David Autor has argued persuasively that the China shock, the dramatic offshoring that followed Beijing's entrance into the World Trade Organization in 2001, inflicted more economic damage on working-class communities in the United States than many experts anticipated, without generating the compensating growth and job creation expected elsewhere. This is not a knockdown case against free trade, just a case against overconfidence in its incautious application. And the same argument applies to other features of the neoliberal program. It's quite possible that lower tax rates spur growth and innovation when tax rates are cut from 70% highs, but also that a program of permanent upper bracket tax cutting, as practiced by America's Republican Party, won't produce the hoped-for spillover effects among the bottom 95%. It's possible that the initial economic insight that some corporate consolidation could be good for consumers was useful for antitrust decision-making in the 1970s and 80s, but needs to be corrected as monopolies regather. It's possible that a program of deficit reduction and tight money that makes sense when inflation is galloping doesn't make sense when we're closer to deflation. The countries sometimes need a loose monetary policy to fight stagnation, and having a financial overclass too fixated on the perils of a for-now imaginary inflation is a recipe for permanently lower growth. Then, alongside this brief against an overextended neoliberalism, there's a more subtle argument, pushed by the more serious sort. I think I skipped a page here. Sort of liberalism that the neoliberal program hasn't so much pushed too far as pushed in the wrong direction. In this argument, we don't need less deregulation, but a different kind than we have, because incumbents and insiders in the West have captured the sprawling regulatory state and used it to freeze out potential competition. The age of stagnation, according to this theory, is the fruit of what Brink Lindsay of the Niskenson Institute and Stephen Tellez of Johns Hopkins University describe as a captured economy, in which everything from land use rules to exclusionary zoning to occupational licensing to ever-expanding intellectual property protections to corporate subsidies and tax breaks all converge to create a system that's basically the worst of socialism and the worst of capitalism conjoined. Plutocratic and sclerotic, overregulated and undertaxed, with an upper class enriching itself off rents rather than innovation, and a service class that can't advance beyond its station. The overlap between this more libertarian argument and the left-wing critique of neoliberalism is apparent in one of the texts of the post-financial crisis left. French economist Thomas Piketty's 2013 tome Capital in the 21st Century, which mined centuries worth of statistics to argue that capitalism inherently makes the rich richer because returns on capital will always be higher than simple economic growth unless some powerful force intervenes. The forces that intervened in the 20th century were the Great Depression and 2 world wars, which not only provided the impetus for massive government interventions, but destroyed outright a great deal of capitalist wealth. The book is The Decadent Society by Russ Douthat. Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting progressive talk radio, and tag you're it. People in the Rust Belt states know all about tariffs. They know that tariffs kept jobs in the Rust Belt states for centuries, literally, that America was built on tariffs. It's one of the reasons Donald Trump got elected in 2016 was because he talked about tariffs. But for some reason right now, you know, the Harris-Walz campaign, or Democrats in general, are reluctant to talk about tariffs. They call them sales taxes or something like that. They really need to be a little more straightforward because people, particularly in the industrial Midwest, or in the Rust Belt, as we call it now, are not dumb. You know, they know what's going on. They know where we've been and how we got here. And I think it's pretty important to be talking about tariffs and what they are, how they work, and how they can bring manufacturing back home. I wrote a piece about it for Hartmann Report. It's titled, Why Trump is Wrong and Alexander Hamilton Was Right About Tariffs. And I think you'll find it absolutely fascinating at hartmannreport.com. Check it out. Welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour. So what's on your mind today? Mildred in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hey, Mildred. What's up?
Hi, Tom. How are you?
I am fine.
Listen, I want everyone to read your book about the American oligarch. They have to understand how the oligarch works in the United States.
Are you talking the hidden history of American oligarchy or the last American president?
Yeah, those. Because I have the Air America book of 2004. I've got 2 of Greg Palast's books. I pay very close attention to the Republicans, and they're not all good.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point to make is today about the State of the Union address. I could not watch it. I did not watch it. I knew what was going to be said. But when the callers come in and say the Democrats were weak, that is not a good message.
I agree.
You say that the Democrats stood by justice. The Democrats stood by a standard of ethics.
Yeah.
And when you don't have control of the House, you don't have control of the Senate, and you don't have control of the White House, you're not in the best position. So we've got great people in the Democratic Party. Mark Kelly, Melanie Stansberry, Raskin, Moskowitz, White House, all of those, Jim Himes, all of these people that are fighting. But the news doesn't give us a good voice. And you cannot, when we are the minority, you don't go in saying, well, I wasn't pleased the way they reacted. No, you don't do that. You start motivating. You start speaking in a strong voice, not trying to be perfect protocol with decorum. Speak with fierceness in your voice. Speak with truth.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why my pitch was that, you know, they have 2 choices, but they chose a third option, which was to sit there and be used and abused like props. But the 2 choices were to bring, you know, something, you know, piece of paper that you write things on and you hold up, or something. You know, they did paddles one year with messages on them. I realize signs are supposed to be banned from the House floor, but, you know, they do it anyway. Or just don't show up. Now, I just got a note from somebody who said, well, if they hadn't shown up, Trump would have pointed at the empty chairs and said, those guys are cowards. They're afraid. I mean, which is true. I mean, there really is a, you know, no way to win here when you know that you're dealing with somebody who just has no respect. I mean, this is the key to the whole thing. Historically, presidents of both parties, Republicans and Democrats, have essentially attacked the other party during State of the Union addresses, but they do it with respect. They say, you know, my colleagues or my friends or my opponents or my the loyal opposition or whatever, you know, they don't think this is a good idea, but I do. I mean, you know, those kind of things. But Trump called them crazy. He implied that they were anti-American. He has no respect for these people or for their offices. And that's what's so incredibly dangerous. And I think that that's reflective of the overall MAGA view. And that's the fascist worldview, which is we're the only ones entitled to power. You are not. That's it in a nutshell. So, Mildred, I think you nailed it. Thank you very much for the call, and thanks for reading my book. Matthew in Madison, Wisconsin, listening on Civic Media. Hey, Matthew, what's up?
Hello, Mr. Hartmann. Thank you for what you do. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, thank you, Matthew.
This is a macro question, and give me a minute to lay it out, but it's about the future and a sustainable, environmentally friendly economy that is only possible, I think, if we decentralize as much as possible. We look at the world right now, and we're at the end of growth. We're on a planet with limited resources. The oligarchs and the billionaires around the world are consolidating power to a more totalitarian, centralized system. They now think robots will replace all labor, so they don't need people anymore.
Yep. Robots and AI,
Mike Wallace had an interview with Aldous Huxley back in 1969, I believe it was, where Huxley said that the greatest threat to humanity is centralized totalitarian power and a worldwide totalitarian state, which I think they are actively trying to implement as we speak.
I agree. And Russia and China are at the forefront of it, along with Trump.
Yeah, and they're all in bed with each other because they know growth is over. This is why Bitcoin is growing, right? Because they're desperate to find growth in something. But my question is this. Do you think the Democratic Party, as their transformative message, can somehow address the decentralization that we need, both in economy, in power, something involving state rights, localized economy, localized food chains, supply?
Yeah, this is the brilliance of federalism, by the way, that you're describing.
Yeah, because when I close my eyes and I picture a better future for communities, for people, for nature, it's a localized economy where people have to preserve what they have because they're not going to get things from another country or 3 states over or whatever it is. Yeah. So the more we can do that, I think that's the more sustainable way. Do you think is there a way for Democrats to roll that into our message and tell people that you're going to have a local economy, you're going to be involved in your community, you're going to have a role in this world? Walmart's not going to own everything and sell everything, so you're not involved.
Yeah,
right?
the way to do that is to heads-on attack the monopolies that Ronald Reagan authorized when he stopped enforcing the Sherman Antitrust Act in 1983. We're looking at right now at for example, the Ellison family is trying to get control of CNN, by buying Warner Brothers, or maybe even by carving it out of the deal and buying it separately. And my guess is that they're going to do it. They're going to get CNN and they're going to turn it into a mild version of Fox News like they're doing with CBS right now. And, we should not be allowing these kind of mergers at all. And these, I think it's fairly well known that whenever Walmart shows up in a town, you lose about 120 to 150 small businesses. They just go bankrupt. The Walmart wipes them out. Those kinds of examples, I think, are well known enough. Beyond that, a lot of what you and I are talking about here, Matthew, as fairly well-informed people politically and not just politics. I mean, with regard to civics, understanding how governments work, how the structure of governments work, is probably going to fly right over the heads of most people. But I think if you can turn it into an economic local issue, I think it's a great idea. Matthew, I got to move along. Thanks for the call. That was a good one. Jimmy in eastern New Mexico. Hey, Jimmy, what's on your mind today?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah, he said that right. We are we are a country of monopolies. This is not free enterprise when monopolies take over.
No, I wrote a book about this. Ralph Nader wrote the foreword to it, The Hidden History of American Monopoly. Yeah, I'm with you, Jimmy.
Yeah. But I was calling about two things. One is the blue states are paying most of the taxes. He's not only not representing them, it's taxation without representation, but he's using their money to attack them.
Yep.
And in the case of Minnesota, to murder two good people.
Yep. And you're right. Blue states pay more than half the taxes in the United States. Well, far more than half the taxes in the United States.
But he's using their money to attack them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's bizarre and ironic and enraging. Jimmy, I'm with you. Thank you. You said it so well. I appreciate the call. Sherry in Finksburg, Maryland. Hey, Sherry, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for your show. Sorry about the dog barking in the background.
It's okay.
What I wanted to talk about was I've heard a lot of comments about with the Republicans standing up and we're for all Americans. Well, quite frankly, they're a bunch of hypocrites. They're not for all Americans. They're doing nothing to bring pedophiles, child rapists, and child traffickers to justice.
Yeah.
They've cut veterans, children's, seniors' benefits. So how are they protecting all Americans? And then to top it off, they are allowing this president to not follow the Constitution. And it is, and the other big point I'd like to make is it's the Constitution that protects all Americans.
Yes,
not the president.
Which is why you're supposed to pledge your allegiance to the Constitution of the United States.
Exactly.
As an oath of office. All of those oaths of office, whether it's congressional, presidential, or military, you pledge your loyalty to the Constitution, not to any man or any party or any woman or et cetera. Yeah, no, your point is very, very well taken, Sherry, and you said it very well. And this is the challenge, and frankly, Democrats need to be louder about it because I'm completely with you.
And I want to tell you, I've been on Facebook all day, and the Republicans are running wild with this, and I've hardly seen anything from the Democrats.
The Republicans are running wild with
what? They need to get out there. They're running wild with saying how horrible the Democrats are because they wouldn't stand up for all Americans.
Oh, yeah. I get it. Yeah, no, that was a moment that was made for social media. Sherry, thank you. Thank you very much. 46 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just 1 minute, or just a few minutes. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Talk media for the rest of us. I'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back. Scott in Portland. Hey, Scott, what's on your mind today? Thanks for listening to X-Ray FM.
Hi, thanks, Tom. Excuse me, I got a little frog in my throat this morning. But anyway, a quick one. I wanted to piggyback
Portland
on what you were
and frogs
about.
Go together really well,
That's true. I guess I didn't make that connection, but yeah.
So, go ahead.
I piggyback on what you were saying about the mail-in ballots and the voting by mail and that kind of stuff. I'm a lifelong Oregonian, and I voted here all my life, and it is the best system to use. The one thing, the caveat is if the Dems get back in the driver's seat and they put another John Lewis voting rights package together, I think it'd be better if they don't call it vote by mail or mail-in ballots. I think they should call it vote at home, because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Because I have never mailed a ballot. I have dropped them in the official drop boxes.
That's right. They've got them all over the city here in Portland. Yep.
Yeah, the one I like to use is literally in the Hollywood neighborhood McDonald's drive-through.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
So you can get your burger and drop off your ballot at the same time.
Exactly. It's like, come on, America, how easy can we make this for you?
I get it.
You know?
Yeah. Well, that's Portland.
So,
I mean, we're all about how, and it's one of the reasons why Oregon has one of the highest voter response rates in the nation.
Oh, exactly. And it's great. You get a notification on your phone saying your ballot's on the way. Yep. And then when you drop it off, they say, we've received it. Everything checks out. You're good to go.
Yep. You can check it online too.
Yeah. So
it's a very good
is
system.
a great system.
Yeah.
And I know you've gone off on it before and cover it very well, but I would just like to say, let's drop the mail-in ballot stuff, because the one
I love that.
I get from everybody I talk to, they say, "Oh, but the post office. Oh, but the post office."
Yeah.
So
vote at home.
Screw the post office.
Vote at home.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Scott, thank you. Thank you for adding to my vocabulary. I appreciate it. Steve in Bellingham, Washington. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi, Tom. Love your show.
Thank you.
I'm just surprised nobody's commented on the Jerry Springer moment last night at Trump's circus show when the poor Venezuelan girl that her father had been jailed and how terrible it was. But guess what?
Uncle.
We've got him out. Mm-hmm. Oh, our uncle. And, it's even more. We've got him here. And they brought him in. It was like the Jerry Springer show used to do.
Yep.
It just cracked me up.
Yeah. No, that was
quite the sideshow.
That was very well staged. I mean, frankly, you have to give the Republicans credit. They know how to put on a TV show. And
that's what it was. It was just a show.
They know they've got no substance to sell, right? I mean, for example, it's just Trump can't win on the issues, and so what does he have to do? He has to put on a performance. I mean, he's done this his whole entire life, hustling condos or whatever it may be. He's a salesman. He's a world-class salesman. He's a really good salesman. He's got
some good snake oil going.
Yeah. Now, he's not what I would call a good salesman, and I used to teach sales courses because he's dishonest, and a truly good salesman or woman is honest, tells the truth. But beyond that, he's a very, very convincing liar. I mean, just, as are most sociopaths. So, Steve, thanks for the call. Spot on. I'll be right back with you in about 1 minute. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with your calls. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Way back in 1964, when Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Republicans started this rant about how the election of 1960, Jock Kennedy stole that election, and there's voter fraud in America. And it became a thing. They started this thing called Operation Eagle Eye. William Rehnquist was running it in Arizona. Trying to intimidate Hispanics and African Americans into not voting, essentially. They have now used this claim that non-citizens are voting, this voter fraud claim, in virtually every red state to make it harder to vote, to purge people off the voting rolls, to make people's votes not counted with their exact signature matches. It's a scam. It's a grift that they've been running for 60 years, and the American media won't call them out on it. There's a whole piece about it called Trump and the GOP's Big Lie 2.0 over at HartmannReport.com. Please check it out. You'll find it fascinating. Welcome back. 8 minutes before the hour, picking up your calls here. Patricia in Wooddale, Illinois. Hey, Patricia, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I watched last night, screaming at the TV and just literally sick to my stomach. And a lady called in and was saying instead of, the paddles, they needed to do something to express themselves, maybe wear T-shirts. So I got to thinking about that, and I thought, maybe they could wear T-shirts, wear something over them when they come in so nobody can see. But during the event, take it off, and on the front it would say something like, Proud Democrat, or Democrats for Liberty, or No Kings. But then when he says something that's obviously a lie, and Republicans are upstanding, cheering, and they're sitting. Instead of sitting, they can stand up, but stand up backwards, and on the back of their shirts it would say, another provable lie.
I love it. I love it. I don't know why the Democrats have not. I mean, Democrats used to do political theater. FDR was all about political theater. Jack Kennedy and LBJ were all about political theater. But it just, and Bill Clinton even did, a fair amount of political theater. But it's been a long time. It's been a long time, and they need to get the damn act together. Patricia, thank you.
Yeah,
That was a great contribution to the conversation. I appreciate the call. Peggy in Madison, Wisconsin. Hey, Peggy, thanks for listening to WMDX. What's up?
I think you're off on the Trump circus.
Okay.
I think what the Democrats did was show the bully, and the American people saw it. I have had a lot of people say, wow, I didn't realize he would be so downright mean. And I went, that's him.
Oh, that's interesting. So by standing there and being abused,
a little weak. Yes.
You think they engendered empathy?
I think the American people will step up and say, no more of this shit.
Yeah. I'm sorry, we can't say that word on the air, Peggy. I got to dump you, but and apologies to anybody who's offended, but I get it. I totally get it. David in Randon, Oregon. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Tom, this is 180 degrees from what we've been talking about this morning, mostly about the State of the Union. What's going on down in? I want to get this isn't a question as much as your opinion. This thing down in Mexico.
I got a real interesting email this morning from one of my best friends.
Tell us that tell us that the Mexican army killed this drug lord.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Americans are asked to shelter in place.
Yeah.
They said that the U.S. intelligence provided information. My guess is, or I'm not asking your opinion, I bet the U.S. was more involved in this than they're letting on. Just your opinion.
Sure, probably. And the U.S. has publicly acknowledged that they provided intelligence to Sheinbaum's army. I have a dear friend who has been, one of my 24 closest friends since college, who spends the winters down in Puerto Vallarta and the summers back up in Lansing, Michigan.
I have friends that live down there.
And they took out the building next door to him. They blew it up. But he said that the cartel guys, they go into the store and they just notify everybody, get out of the store, we're going to burn it down, everybody out. They'd stop cars in the streets and they say, please get out of your car, we're going to pour gasoline on it and light it on fire. Nobody died, nobody got beat up. They were very polite, actually, to the people whose property they were destroying. And he watched this in real time. He sent me some video that he shot from his balcony, in his apartment, just overlooking, this one building being burned down. And he said it was really quite remarkable, that the guys from the cartels, they clearly run the town. There wasn't a single cop anywhere for 24 hours. I mean, the police were hiding out. And, whether the cartel owns the police or just has them cowed. But this is the beginning of something that's going to be a whole lot bigger, David. In part because the guy who ran that, the new generation cartel is dead. There's now a huge power vacuum. And you've got multiple competing cartels as well as people within that cartel competing to be the next, Lord of Darkness here. So keep an eye on it, David. Keep an eye on it. Thanks for the call. And thank you for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us, and that includes you. So get out there, get active, tag you're it. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the people around you. Stay safe, stay sane, get some damn exercise, to stay healthy and keep your brain alert. One of the very best things for your hippocampus, in fact, your short-term memory, is walking. Strangely enough, new studies, walking, just walk a mile every day. I'll catch up with you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.